Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. This week's guest is Tom Kelly, Master Sergeant, United States Army retired, a Green Beret, and the author of A Team Sergeant's Handbook, available on Amazon and with Blacksmith Publishing. Links for that will be in the show description. A fantastic piece of literature here that I think every senior E7 and possibly every Green Beret in the regiment should at least look at once. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Please check out this book and get yourself a copy and leave him a review. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, possibly comment if you so choose. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Tom Kelly, welcome to Lesser Known Operators. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, as the guy who literally, and I hate using the word literally, wrote the book on being a team sergeant, I'm glad to have you here.
Well, it's an honor. And this book was a long time coming, and I wish I had it. So I just threw my thoughts down on paper, and paper turned into a book. So I'm glad it's out there, and I've received some positive feedback. And again, thanks for bringing me on your show to spread the word.
Fuck yeah, man. I mean, when we first talked, you spoke about, I wasn't the best team sergeant in the hallway. And we do that, right? As SF guys, we'll look at our peers and go, I'm deficient in this area or I'm deficient in another one. You'll minimize your own qualifications or your own self-worth even. But I mean, because no one, as far as I know, or right, actually took the time to improve the team sergeant position since they've left, right? So you're the first guy to actually sit down and keep being a team sergeant after they were done doing it. So I commend you on that. I think that says a lot more, just like the beret, right? It says a lot more about you than you would ever say about yourself.
Wow, that's a great comparison. Thank you.
I like it. So
sorry, go ahead.
How do you find, we're quiet professionals and you wrote a book. Have you been able to get over that hump of now, I wrote this book, I got to get it out there, I got to talk about myself? How is that working for you?
Still riding the struggle bus on that one for sure. It took me about 48 hours just to see your post on our SF Facebook page and think, do I put myself out there? Do I reach out to Nick? Do I see it even going to care? And I've gone through that cycle a couple of times. There's a couple other podcasts I reached out to and, didn't receive much back. So I was like, all right, cool. So obviously lots of confidence there, but you replied right back. Conversation maybe that day, next day. So, but getting over the hump entirely, nope. Self-publicizing, that's still not my thing. I just rather put in my time, try and improve my foxhole and take care of my family and take care of my team now with my new job. So yeah, still a struggle.
What's your new job now?
I'm currently a project manager for an electrical company that focuses on solar utility scale solar fields. So we do all the electrical work. We have the ability to do the mechanical, the racking, put all that stuff up. But generally, we just go in, lay the cable, make all the connections for our couple of clients that we generally work with.
Just as stressful as being a team sergeant or slightly less?
No, nowhere near that, but it does have some fun times, right? Constructions are all about timelines, and timelines require checklists, and all of that is done by people, and people are people. So just getting to know them, understanding strengths and weaknesses, try and balance out a team. So a lot of the same principles that team sergeant or any senior non-commissioned officer would be able to apply. So yeah, it's fantastic. It was a smooth transition into it, except for now I sit in front of a desk more and a lot of Excel, a lot of Teams meetings and whatnot. So
yeah, that's kind of like the Army, right? I joined thinking I wasn't going to be at a desk all the time, and I was surprised at the percentage I was sitting in front of a computer screen. Were you surprised as well, especially as you started coming up through the ranks?
I started with, I was an airborne infantryman. The only computers in the building were in the commander's office, first sergeant's office, and S1's office. So I was like, heck yeah, don't have to do anything with that. I just pack my rucksack, make sure I have my weapon and my nods, and good to go. Then 9/11 happens. And fast forward to the first time I really sat down at a desk and crunched something was after I became an 18 Fox or in the school. And then for the next couple of years.
Mm.
So yeah, that's where I had those questions and like, what am I doing? I mean, overseas, you're crushing it 12 hours a day, 18 hours a day, depending on what you're building and if there's anything around and who your connections. Are you kind of this lone ranger 18 Fox pulling it all in, or are you getting out there and get to, who do you share with? Or they share it back? And anyway, that's where I first found the desk and the chain attached to my leg. Because if you're not doing that as a Fox, then the guys ain't getting out the wire. So
Well, and I'll bring this up later, but I mean, you in your book put admin before training. So you must have realized that if it's not on paper and it's not documented, that it didn't happen. When did you come to that realization?
um, that happened when I was we'll call it a senior E7 in the company, and the company sergeant major was looking for a new B team op sergeant. Interviewed a couple of us, and whatever I said worked. He pulled me up. So now I'm sitting in the E8 seat, and generally the B team ops sergeant's a guy that's already been a team sergeant, so he's got the mileage and he can come up and he can help the company command team manage all these training concepts or anything for the teams getting ready to go out the door. And because he's seen it, he's done it. He may not have been a dive guy, but he can read a concept, review it, and say, "Hey, you're kind of missed. You're saying driving here, but you haven't requested trucks. Basics, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So paperwork drives the Army. That's what I learned. That's where I learned it. Everything about the Army is driven by paper or digital paper now, but same story.
What did it was always when I get first got to a team, there's always just one guy that had been in group for 30 years, and he would always say, when I got to my first team room, there was just one phone in the corner. We didn't even have nothing, and we've come all the way from that to we have supercomputers in our pocket. And you said, the commander only had a computer. How interesting was it to see that evolution of, when you left on the weekend to go out, there was no getting a hold of you, to you can get a hold of anybody anywhere in the world at any time. How interesting was that to see across your career?
That was a crazy evolution because there was a couple of people, some the barracks rats or the married guys that making a little extra cash. Um, they had cell phones, and this was 2001. Not saying that cell phones weren't a thing before that. I'm just saying it was rare for E1s through a few E5 sprinkled through the barracks to have cell phones, but then the married guys, and then 9/11 happens, we show up, and the first sergeant and platoon sergeants are walking around collecting up phones, throw them in, a trash bag, which was funny. Anyway, but obviously stored in the first sergeant's office. After 9/11, everyone went into lockdown, so that was interesting. But yeah, that progression from nobody has it to everybody has it, and blessing and a curse at any time. You can, you know, call the wife from pretty much around the globe, check in on the family, be present. Some guys saw it as the greatest thing ever, and a lot of guys saw it as a leash that just happened to be however many miles long when you were deployed. So I guess it's on the individual.
Yeah, man, it's all how perspective on you, how you view things. So you said you were airborne trooper infantry. You said infantry,
Indeed.
and you were in Alaska. Obviously, that's not Hawaii, like the recruiter told you. So,
No, my recruiter was cool, but yeah.
what was it led to originally joining the military?
I was a military brat. My folks met in Germany, got married in Copenhagen, Denmark, and then I was born in Berlin. Stayed there till I was about 3 or 4. I don't have like this written out history, but so it's all based on what I've been told. Anyway, about 3 or 4 years old, stayed in Germany, came to the States. At that point, my parents had split the army back in the late 70s, early 80s, not conducive to soldiers being married with a kid. Generally, mom had to basically say, okay, I'm staying home with the kid. Yeah, there wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
what do we call it nowadays when there's two service members married? There's a thing like that's a whole other part of the team sergeant book I could have thrown in there when you've got joint military spouses or whatever it's called. Yeah,
Hmm.
like who's moving where, what happened to kids? Oh, hey, we need your family emergency plan. Like that could have been at least a paragraph. I don't know if I covered. No, did not cover it in there.
Well,
Anyway, so going
you
back to
did
me.
say know your guys.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's an important thing is to at least have a understanding of who they are as people. And you said, take into account with their plan anniversaries, vacation, big moments in their lives. So you did kind of
Yeah.
cover it.
Okay. So, um, anyway, so we moved stateside. Parents kind of did their split thing. Or my mom and I ended up in uh, Corvallis, Oregon, right there in the Willamette Valley, about an hour 15, hour 20 minutes south of Portland, Oregon. Um, Small college town, Oregon State University's Beaver Believer for life. Just
Mm.
saying. Um, and then I stayed there from kindergarten through graduating high school. So that was a small college town, and certain things in my life I didn't like where it was going. Didn't like high school at all, except for playing sports, hanging out with my friends, my girlfriend. Uh, yeah, just sitting in a classroom all day, memorizing stuff to take tests. Yeah, that was my thing. I did it just enough to play sports. And I looked around, everyone's, going to college or has a trade school lined up, or, they work for their parents because, that was a pretty good part of the Willamette Valley. Lots of opportunities there, and lots of my friends, their parents owned the business that was in the town, so they had a future. I didn't really think that far ahead. So I was 17. I was a junior, and the Army recruiter just walks in, and I'm just happen to be sitting by myself thinking about what am I going to do after senior year next year. Army recruiter walked in. I'm like, "Hey, guy, how old do I got to be to join? What's the thing?" And he's like, "I was a recruiter's dream," and I was like, "Yeah, I just want to be infantry, I want to be airborne, and how do I get there?" So anyway, he took care of me ish. But
What year was this?
this was 98. I was the tail end of my junior year, so 98. I
Okay.
graduated in 99.
Graduated nine. So we're in relatively quiet years, with no idea what's ahead of you, what you're about to get yourself into. So what was it like going from your small town to basic training over in Fort Benning School for Boys?
Obviously, just getting off the plane, and you can't feel the humidity. Everything's air conditioned there, so you're just normal day, normal airport, and you're sitting there by the big clock. I can't remember. It's like a small rounded out area. There's a clock there on the Atlanta airport, and that's where you're going to meet up with so and so to get on a bus. As soon as I walked outside, got on that bus, I was like, "What am I doing? It's July in Georgia.
Hmm.
I'm coming from. It gets warm in Oregon, obviously a lot of rain, so there is humidity, but I had never felt the South's ability to just suck it out of you, suck the will to live out of you. So that's when I knew I was in for trouble. That was my first thought. And then you get
You
there,
can't.
you show up to 31AG, and it's 2 in the morning, and they put you in the chow hall line, feed you, and then they put you in the bunk, and then 3 hours later, they're screaming at you to get up and go back, get in the chow line. Yeah, I was like, what am I doing? What did I get myself into?
Always a shock to the system, and then like they run you through this, get you used to that, and then it's summer, so you must have graduated in fall, and then they send you to Alaska in the winter.
Right. So me and my buddy, obviously basic and AIT are right there, but
Yeah.
we linked up, and whenever we could, we hung out, talked, and he had a state girlfriend, so did I, and similar family. He's Northern California, I'm from Oregon, so yeah, we just linked up and went to jump school together. We did our first jump together, and of course, they're yelling at you with the bullhorn, so you run over and you form up, and then they're like, okay, if we call it your name, form up over here to your right, my left, and they called a couple of us, and I go over there, I look at my buddy, and I'm like, and because his name should have come first, and they were going down the alphabetical roster anyway. So I run over there. He's standing over there, and this black hat comes up, and he's like, "All right, everyone in this group, you're going to Alaska."
Oof.
I was like, "What? What does that mean?" Because I thought I had orders to the 82nd with my buddy from basic. Anyway, that's how I
Yeah.
ended up in Alaska. That was interesting.
What was jump school like for you? Because that's the Army's one thing. They start introducing you to more and more training that's realistic, or more and more training that can kill you. And that's kind of your first iteration or your first introduction to training, where I could jump out this airplane and be dead in 20 seconds. What was it like jumping out of that airplane the first time?
Um, well, the biggest rush I'd had in my life at that point, because other than, doing some low level, they call it mountains, going outside our small town, Corvallis, but like riding with my buddies, crushing these big hills and everything. That was probably the biggest thrill. Maybe a roller coaster or two here, but jumping out of a plane, that was pretty awesome. And just not knowing that the equipment's going to work, because they kind of, the black hats kind of poke you and prod you and talk about training accidents and all the fun stuff. And then they put you on the bird and they leave you there and they pump the heat up to 9,000 Calvin
Hmm.
or whatever it is. And then they just circle the tarmac, then they fly slow, and then they start doing their weird banks, and you're getting used to that. The heat's on. I wanted off the plane so bad.
Yeah, I remember that. I wanted to just get off of that fucking plane because I don't know, I think they just made it miserable on purpose, just so you would be more inclined to jump out the door.
It's almost like it was designed in such a manner.
But that is one thing, right? How you went through basic and AIT and then off to jump school. But that's one thing you don't notice in the military is, oh, you're going to jump school, and then even drill sergeants or whoever you go past to go, yeah, just passing comment. I knew a guy that went to jump school. He's dead. Anyway, pick up your child. Pick up your child there. You go, what the fuck? And then you got to be shooed off another direction. Anything like that stand out to you? Little comments. Oh fuck! What have I got myself into?
No, I definitely started noticing them, and as private knucklehead, I'm not going to ask questions or say anything. But I remember logging those things, and then it just kept going. No matter where you went, infantry, SF, interacting with all the different peoples, different branches, and there's a morbid sense of humor in the military. And I was like, okay, I think I can make this work. And
Yeah,
it just becomes part of you. And I think it's also just like turning the heat up on those planes to kick everyone off the aircraft. I think it's intentional. Well, maybe
yeah,
subconsciously intentional, because if you don't have that morbid sense of humor and you go over and now you're dealing with, you know, combat, if you don't have that already ingrained in your head, then there's going to be problems.
yeah. There's dark humor, and then there's military dark humor.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Transitioning out to a civilian life, you can't speak like that anymore, ever again. Did you notice that when you got into your new role that people are
Well, I did pick the right industry, construction. And
Hmm.
those are just some good old Americans. And construction is similar to the military. Once you're out in the field and you're around the people that build the stuff and the
Yeah.
middle management that came up from the trenches that now lead the people that build the stuff. Yeah, it's similar. So I found a good place to be. Now, when I'm back here, I do mostly remote. When I'm getting on the Teams meetings, yeah, I'm putting a different hat on for sure. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's I have noticed that, and luckily, okay, it's not luckily, maybe, I don't know. Every year, sexual harassment training, all the different levels of training that we had. I mean, anywhere from 1 to 2 times a year, depending on if someone lost the roster and you had to do it again. Yeah. So I've got a solid foundation to be in the civilian force. I just have to look back and be like, okay, they're saying the exact same stuff. All right, just apply, move on.
Another side of the construction that is pretty similar to the military is the drinking culture. The guys in the trades, they can put them back. You talk about some functioning alcoholics. That's I found that you wouldn't see it in where you're at, but carpet guys were the worst when I was in. But that was back 20 some years ago. But man, people would you get off at 2:30, framing a house, and everybody went right to the bar. Killed six
Dang.
beers and then would go home and then just do it again or drink all night and come back the next day. So,
Especially the
yeah.
guys up in the trusses that I don't know if I'd want to be hung over up there. But at the same time, I did some dumb things and maybe been in the mountains after a night of drinking. So yeah, it's the same thing
You can make it work, right?
until it doesn't work.
Until it doesn't work, right? You get too old and you can't do this stuff anymore.
Yeah, the body's like, no, I'm not going to do this hungover again. I'm going to slow you down to a point where you will listen to me now. And that's happened.
So we get to Alaska. You're a private. Talk about now. You talk about crazy. So are you unmarried at this time, right? When you get to Alaska,
Correct.
so you're going to the barracks.
Hmm.
What's it like, private, getting to Alaska, middle of winter, and you're like, what the fuck did I get myself into here?
I was confused because the only person in the hallway was staff or CQ, charge of quarters. And he was a specialist, grumpy specialist, because he decided not to burn his leave time and ended up on CQ every other day. So, massive rude awakening to the infantry life of you will shut up in color, you will do as you're told. No one wants to hear you. Just right time, right place, right uniform, right? And then of course you're never right. No matter if you receive instruction, you show up exactly how they tell you to be, you're still wrong. It felt like what was that Bandit Brothers, Captain Sobel, like finding something, or did he find something? Right. Anyway, any excuse to smoke your face off. It was anyway, but my first night quiet because it was block leave. It happened. Right. So I only got this angry specialist and maybe a couple other people showing up here and there. Things got real once everyone showed back up because fresh meat. We're talking 1999 Clinton era military. Very few new guys are showing up, right? Replacements. And as soon as that happened, that first training week happens, and then the weekend happens, and the barracks parties were insanity. How far do I? My favorite memory is being duct taped into a sleeping bag, and you had to inchworm down tile floor, and there were shot glasses at every door in the barracks on that first floor. So just going in, and you got to figure out how to take the shot, and then you just keep going and until you black out. And that was my introduction to the platoon. So
God bless America, huh?
I didn't still love bourbon, so I guess we're doing all right.
Hey, that's all right. Yeah, the barracks parties, there's something else, right? And you've got a mishmash of people from all over the country, all different nationalities. You find out that that's why I think one reason everybody should serve time in the military, because that would end a lot of racism in the United States. Because you really put that shit aside when you get to a unit and you're going to barracks parties and you start seeing the diversity of all of the personnel, and then just getting along and finding common ground and having a party. Is that kind of what you saw getting there?
Getting there, yeah, absolutely, because the whole point was you have to know your job. And, being the new guy, I don't know my job. So if someone took me, actually, I get there, I know nothing. Someone took me under their wing. And at that point, it doesn't matter black, white, yellow. It doesn't, we had it all up and down the platoon. And I didn't care who was teaching me because at some point, it was 1999, Kosovo, Bosnia thing was real, but we weren't going anywhere. But at the same point, airborne infantry, the idea is we want to be first in, we want to be behind the lines. So you got to know your stuff, and then you got to know your buddy stuff, and two levels up, right? So it didn't matter what color you were. It was a left and right of you, and I'm going to take care of him because he's going to take care of me. And as soon as I got there, that's what I felt.
Yeah, it's interesting, and then it becomes more so paramount when you get to like an SF team. But when you're in a company and everybody's getting along and working together, especially when you go for that first field training exercise, right? And you go and you do the full mission profile, and you finish up index, and everybody's slapping hands, and it's all a big deal, and you kind of figure out what it's all about. It's a pretty good feeling.
It is a good feeling. And then there's those little things that you remember and you hold on to, and you're like, you know what? That's a good idea. I'm going to make this a thing when I'm that rank. We'd always come back from the field. My first field problem, we came back, and the squad leader went over and just threw in that cassette and push play of American Pie. And then that was the first song we'd always come back to and start stripping guns and cleaning guns, taking them to the arms room for the armor to kick them back and tell us they're dirty. And we
Always
just sit
kick
there
them
and
back.
oh man, it was terrible. But he had a fridge full of beer for us. We'd have a couple. and if we lived in the barracks, if we're doing our work, he'd give us, that third one, right? He's trying to be responsible, but take care of the boys, show us that, you know, we're adults, but, you know, this works hard.
Yeah, until somebody screws up, right? And
Oh,
then
yeah.
everybody gets punished all together. I remember we had one of those parties, right? We're out in Lawton, somebody's house, and everybody's there, like all the junior enlisted guys. And I mean, we partied late, late, and then we had a recall on Sunday morning. No,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it wasn't Sunday morning, but I remember it was 1,000 degrees outside Oklahoma in the summer, and we got in trouble because we private privates got in trouble because our sergeant had gotten a DUI and parked his car into a cop car. So
Mm.
we had to go to formation the next day. That was another moment where I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. What did I get myself into? Why am I out here? Did you have a moment like that in your regular Army unit?
I was there, so 99, and I showed up December 99. So thousands really when I first started the real Army clock, right? Because everyone's back off leave. 2000. I had a year and 9 months of those moments of just looking around, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't know everything. I'm Private Kelly. I'm trying to read the manuals, and I'm learning by doing and getting yelled at. So then I'm seeing just ridiculous stuff. Like in the other squad, one of the team leaders found an M4. And we're in the woods. We're
Is
in
that
a
bad?
patrol
That
base kind of
sounds
setting.
bad.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it is a bad thing. I'm not saying the kid was right by leaving it there, but what shouldn't have happened was the team leader took the bolt out, took a bunch of mud and jammed it into this kid's weapon
God.
and like really getting it in there with his pinky, handed him his bolt, handed him his weapon, and we're in the middle of a training exercise. Like this kid is supposed to, we're using blanks and all that stuff, but he's still supposed to function as a rifleman in this platoon exercise. But
Mm.
this E5 decided this was the appropriate level of reaction to that infraction. And I'm like, note to self, never do that again, ever.
I feel like
So,
he might have had some other stuff going on at home. And, isn't that a lot of the
yeah,
guys, right? And especially in the regular Army, they got some other shit going on at home and they just take it out on their Joes. That's unfortunate.
that ended up being a very true story. And he went to BNOC, or what is it called now? ANOC, or not ANOC. That's it. That was old school
Something
SLC.
leaders course, advanced
Yeah,
ALC.
whatever. ALC. There we go. He went to the infantry version of that and came back within a week. And that's expensive to fly a soldier from Alaska down to, I think it's at Benning. I think that's where infantry ALC is. And he didn't pass tape.
Yes.
So he was a quality leader. Super smart, memorized a bunch of manuals so he could just rattle it off at the right time with the right person in front of him. So he had an audience, but he couldn't pass the tape test.
I loved that. When I got to my unit, there's Ward, you're overweight. What? How? You got to go see the commander. Okay, I don't know. Still don't know what you're talking about. And even today, if you look up, I'm morbidly obese by Army standards.
Me too. I'm supposed to be
Was
170 pounds at 5'8". I'm
Yeah,
225.
I'm 60 pounds overweight.
Right. But
But
you're
that's the big Army, right? We're going to put this system in place, and most people will fall into it, and if not, they'll just fall by the wayside. Another one of the dumb things that came along in the regular Army. Like I said, I was only at my unit a few days before I decided I got to get the fuck out of here.
I think I needed a bigger push, so 9/11 just happened to work.
Okay, what was that like? You're in an airborne unit. You're not the 82nd, but what was your guys's? Did you guys compare yourself to the 82nd in your readiness style?
Um, I was an E1 through E4 there. I mean, I pinned E5 within a month or two before leaving, but no. Well, okay, mentality wise, yeah, of course. Just that we're better than everybody attitude. That's every paratrooper out there. So
Mm.
my squad's better than yours. Our platoon's better than yours. That goes all the way. And then, of course, unit to unit, it's the same, right? So, but back in the day, It was the 172nd Infantry Separate Brigade or Brigade Separate. I can't remember how they phrased that. And we were the Airborne Battalion, and then the other two leg battalions were up at Fort Wainwright. So, of course, we thought we were better than them because we were airborne, but we were the only Arctic Airborne Battalion in the Army. That was our go-to thing whenever we bumped into, like, someone would go to school or the 82nd random guy would show up. Like, yeah, that was our thing. So, our plan of fame. But yeah, 9/11 happens, and we thought, Afghanistan, mountains, it's going to be winter soon. We're in.
Mm,
We were not in.
we're not in.
We were not on the playbook. Um, 9/11 happens. We obviously base locks down. We end up doing triple strand around the battalion AO. And of course, the joke going was that the morbid joke going was, what is triple strand going to do against a jet flying into the building? So we set up patrols around, 2-man guard shift, and rotating through the companies, through the platoons on who's the roving guard, and every company had to provide two. And then from the walking the battalion triple strand, then we got tasked out to the water supply for Fort Richardson. That makes sense. And the power plant. So we just did those 3 guard rotations. And then the MPs got tired of doing their job at the gate. So then the infantry augmented the MPs at the gate. And this is months. We're talking going into through October, November, into December. And like, when are we gonna do anything? All training had ceased. That's literally all we did was PT and pull guard. So I remember showing up to the shop at, we're getting our Red Bull didn't exist then, so it was either Surge or a cube of Mountain Dew to stay
Jolt
up all night.
Cola.
Jolt, yep, that's right. I was trying to remember that the other day, but I remember Surge. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to stay up all night, do this amazing guard duty stuff. And I'm complaining. I'm like, there is no way I'm ever reenlisting because I'm not even close, right, for reenlistment or whatever. My contract was another 2 years. And I remember saying this out loud, and I stole it from a buddy. I wish I could say I came up with this one, but I wouldn't reenlist for $1 million bonus and being the door gunner on a space shuttle.
Mm.
That was my phrase. And I remember saying it because as soon as I said that, frickin' GB walks in. He's got all his frickin' HUA badges sewn on. Uniform it was sharp, but it wasn't, like a wrinkle bomb. It was somewhere perfectly right in the middle. He's wearing jungle boots. And that is a big deal in Alaska because as soon as it hits like middle of October, you have to do all leather boots or insulated boots or the big Mickey Mouse white vapor barrier boots, VB boots. And we're just watching this dude walk in, glorious mustache,
Doesn't give a
and
fuck.
zero fucks because his beret's hanging out of his cargo pocket. And let me tell you, if you want to get hemmed up, that's one of the first things you do, or hands in pockets. And I think both were happening at the same time. I don't know. It was just amazing.
God, once makes me want to go upstairs, put my uniform on, and put my hands in my pockets and my beret out in my cargo pocket.
Right? I mean, we could pause the show and just do that. Anyway, so this guy walks in and he grabs whatever he's getting, probably alcohol because, he's a man. And he walks up and he just happens to get behind us in line. I turn around, I go to rigid parade rest because he's an E7 or something. And I'm in the infantry. That's what you do when you talk to people. And I'm like, how do I become you? And then he just happened to be a recruiter. So that
Yeah,
started my journey.
I can't imagine there. He was there TDY to do the brief, right?
Yep.
Okay. So he's not staying there. Is he out of Hawaii or is he out of California or something like that?
He probably came up from Lewis, I would assume. Or I
But
don't
that
know
makes
how
sense. Yeah.
the recruiter battalion worked back in the 90s because now it's all official and MTO'd and stuff through
Yeah.
USASOC and whatnot. But yeah,
But just, yeah,
uh,
going around. And what a wonderful time, I mean, from his side, probably not as great because he wants to go back to group to get into the mix. So
right.
he's probably like, I'm ready to get back. But what a great time to be an SF recruiter, being guys going, oh yeah, I'll go to selection. I'll go to selection. I'll go to selection. So just tons of people ready to go, not knowing. Isn't it interesting to think while you were sitting on gate guard, just fucking hate in your life, that you would be one of those guys also down the road, because the horse soldiers were in just fucking people up at this point, right?
Right.
Coming into northern Afghanistan, and you're sitting on gate guard, and then fast forward all these years, you're the guy. Did you have any inkling in your mind when you run into Sergeant squared away there at the PX that you would be that guy down the road and all the shit you'd see ever down the road?
I could I could envision myself earning the beret, but after that, like I had to go buy a book. Like I knew GBs were badasses, but I had to go buy Tom Clancy's book, Special Forces, and he breaks down organization structure to a degree and talks about a little bit about selection and the SF mission. And the only reason I went and bought that book because I was all excited about going to selection. Met this guy, signed up for the briefing, went to the briefing, and then my squad leader, and he's one of my treasured mentors. He asked the simple question. He's like, "Hey man, do you know what a Green Beret does?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man. They're commandos, Rambo, like small teams." And I didn't have an answer. And he's like, "You need to go buy a book, and you've got 1 week to do so, and you report back to me." He was a fantastic squad leader,
Yeah.
super smart, super athletic, and gave a shit about us. Now he'd scuff us up if we were being idiots, but he cared.
I mean, that's great, right? Because you obviously went on to do all the shit you do, and looking back, you could have just as easily had a fucking shithead taking care of you, and you hated it, and you wouldn't have done anything. You're just counting down the days till you get out, and you would have never had your head up and gone and done the things. But if you got a good leader that motivates you, that's really taking care of you, how big of a difference do you think that makes in careers that just end after one term, or that they go on to have a full 20 years? That first introduction.
That's I think for the majority of people, it is huge. That can immediately make or break that person deciding to stay in and dedicate their life to continue to serve. Absolutely. Um, then there's people like us that end up in SF who's like, you're not quite sure what you're searching for. You joined the military, you know something better is out there, especially in your story where you land and like 5 seconds later you're on, on a plane
I
to
knew,
selection.
I knew when Sergeant Major came out of that talk in the field with those white Oakleys on, this is not the place for me. I'm, I'm all for it, but I just got out of basic, Sergeant Major. You could at least follow one regulation here. Yeah, and that's it, right? I don't know what I'm searching for, but this fucking ain't it. And I
Yeah.
get that as GBs, we don't always follow the regulations, but I was like, all right, I'm not that guy. I'm not here for that. Where's
Yeah, so I think it's instrumental for a majority, but then there's the small percentage that they're going to see that guy and be like, well, I'm going to log that as never do this and move on to the next assignment. Work through it, learn what they can, move on. So those individuals exist too.
How do you think it is for like the inverse perception, right? Because you can meet 100 squared away Green Berets, bad motherfuckers. But if you meet one bad Green Beret as like a regular soldier, right? You meet somebody that's just a shithead, that'll taint not only yours, but like your units and everybody perception of what we do and how professional we can be. Do you ever see that?
Uh, Not in a huge capacity. I was down at GRTC, GRTC? Yeah, GRTC down in Louisiana for the second time as the op 4 this time. So that was cool. But we were going to do a jump, and this GB ends up on our chalk, and he's got master parachutist wings and a bunch of other HUA stuff on there. And um, I'm not in his chalk, but like I'm next to him in a different chalk, and he couldn't remember how to hook up something. Like I don't know if it was his weapon case or if he was jumping a weapon or just something simple, right? Like in the airborne infantry, you jump all the time. That's like the thing you get to do, especially in the no war years. That was the highlight of your enlistment. So when I'm looking over there, I'm not a jump master and I'm seeing him struggle with something. I'm like, wait a minute. I see master parachutist wings, but what's going on here? But it wasn't a question of that because like if he's a turd burglar, but it was questionable, right? I don't know. That's like that one thing I saw in my younger years.
And that's the like the younger year perception, right? You're airborne infantry, all hua and up on things. And I did write down out of your book, right? The jump logs at battalion, they've been audited, right? And guys have come up, their pay hurt or pay or jump, they need to jump. I just thought back to when you first get to battalion or first get to the group, right? You're like, oh, you only have to jump every 3 months. And then after a few months or 6 months, you go, "Oh my god, I have to jump every 3 months. What the fuck?" Especially when we were at Lewis, because you only got 4 months out of the year where you were guaranteed you were going to jump, and then there was 8 months of wet, so that really fucked with it. And then guys are training and they're out all over the world, and you can't get them. So looking back, you see that guy up in the airplane he's got all the accolades, airborne, master parachutist rings, right? And goes, and that motherfucker probably hasn't been in an aircraft in 2 years.
I knew immediately within a year being in group, I was like, yeah, just having that little flashback, and I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
I got you, brother.
He's looking at a weapons case. What the fuck is this? Fuck.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
So your squad leader tells you to go research what a Green Beret is. What'd you find out?
Um, being the young guy and really mission focused, obviously I paid a lot of attention to whatever I had in there for SFAS and being prepared and physically, and how much you should be able to carry and be able to climb rope, and like I really focused on that. And then it got to line and block charts on like command structure and ODAs and stuff, and I'm just like, okay, cool. And then I
Oh,
got into some of the missions, but it was super, not super vague. And I haven't read the book in 26 years, so I don't want to give Tom Clancy a bad review.
he's
But
dead.
well, his books are still legends. So again, don't want to give Tom Clancy a bad review. But I remember showing up and reporting to my team sergeant, like, this is what I'm doing to train for SFIS. And he's like, okay, what does a Green Beret do? So I had to go back to the book, and I can't remember what I extrapolated and, presented to my squad leader at the time. But I knew it was hitting on the small team, force multiplier. I need to start digging into guerrilla warfare, partisan warfare, understand the basics there. That's what Green Berets do. It's not kicking in the doors and all the stuff. It's about teaching. And I was like, and then once I learned that, I was really excited because anytime I had some information and the new guy was sitting next to me, it was always the coolest thing to be like, oh, hey, let me help you with your harness here on his first jump, or hey, we're at the range. So, maybe adjust your body position a little bit. I have good luck with this, right? And then I just tied it all together. I'm like, okay, GB it is.
Fuck yeah, man. That's what, yeah. That's like, yes, and then you go sign that waiver, right? You turn in your PT card. I assume you got a 300.
Barely.
Bare, barely.
Yeah, because no matter where I went, it was never just like, hey, here's your 300. It's like, no, you got to earn that one. You got to run. I'm like, dang it. So I was a 290 guy for most of my career.
Yeah. I started out 300s and then I started getting stronger and getting slower. Um, yeah. And then after a while, you're like, nobody cares. As long as you can run 14 minutes, nobody cares.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Unless you were going to, because I was a team sergeant and 2000, end of 2009 ish to 13. Yeah, and that's right when 10th Group wasn't going to Iraq anymore as soon as I became team sergeant. 2nd Battalion started ramping up to do Afghanistan, multiple back to back track trips, and we were doing J sets. So basically, almost Afghanistan's still happening. Other places are ramping up, but that's really not our AOR, but maybe it is, and all this other stuff. But we turned more into garrison life. And if you show up and you can't, if you show up to senior leaders course or you send one of your guys and they come back and they couldn't pass the PT test or something, yeah, that was your neck, as teams are.
Yeah, no, you got to pass those gates. And I have heard of guys going to SLC. There was a while that you went to SLC. There was no PT test, but I think they brought it back in the 2020 or 2018 or something like that. But yeah, well, fuck them, right? All right. What's it like? So we're leaving Alaska. You go to selection. What was your first impression getting there and getting on the bus and heading out to McCall after you get your shit?
Last time I got on a bus going to a place, yeah, I mean 180. They were just like, "Hey man, get on the bus, do a head count, cool. Drive out there, get dropped off. No one's screaming at you." And then
No.
I can't remember all of the sequence of events, but this was March '02.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, I remember the big whiteboard. I remember getting a brief. Welcome to selection. A couple people spoke. Enlisted in one officer, and then take all instructions from the board. And then it began. And I can't remember if I showed up in the middle of the day or the middle of the night. I can't remember any of that, but I just remember after that, I couldn't see myself doing more time where I left because they weren't going to war. I knew GBs were doing stuff, and they all over the world. No matter where I landed, I knew I was going to be doing something bigger than what I was at. So I had this no fail attitude. Whatever they threw in front of me, I just wanted to hit it 100%.
Yeah. It's a once you get there, you start even get more hyped up, right? You're hyping yourself up. You're like, yeah, this is it. And then you get in selection, and then you pass that, and then you realize, selection wasn't that hard because you get into the next phase, and that one sucks even more than the other one did. Was there any part of selection where you thought, oh, I'm going to have a little trouble here, or did you just leave no doubt going through it?
Immediately after the swim test. Well, okay, so we did swim test, PT test, swim test, or whatever. I can't remember the sequence of events. I just remember they were happening. I remember there was the obstacle course, but immediately, as soon as they said land navigation, I knew land navigation was coming. But that was my biggest fear because for the last 2 years at expert infantry badge training event, training for and executing the thing, I can finish all the stations. I can do the road marches, the PT test, rifle qualification, all the stuff, but I couldn't land nav to save my life. And that may or may not be a big part of SFAS. So as soon as I got down there, I was worried. But they brought us all into this huge classroom, well, big to me back then. And it was the best block of instruction that I had received in the Army to that point in mass. Now, I've had some awesome squad leaders, team leaders, great blocks of instructions right there on the ground, hit pocket training. But en masse, that was the best training event I'd been through at that point in my military career. I
Yeah, they really.
understood. And then they give you all this information. Then they take you out into the field and you walk around for a minute and they'll just kind of go off whatever trail and or whatever, improvise road and boom, boom, boom. All right, pull out your maps, orient your compass. All right, hey, we're standing here. What terrain features do you see? I see a mount here, a this, and a stream, or the tip of a draw, or whatever. Here's a 6 point intersection. I'm thinking you know what that reference is.
Mm.
This is where you're on the map. Look around you. And then that at that point, looking at the map and listen to what he was saying, it became a 3D image. So once that happened between the block of instruction and that terrain walk, yeah, I didn't do perfect on my first little trial runs they put you through. But as soon as I got my 4 points at night on the practice runs, I was on.
Yeah.
That didn't miss a point after that. That to my memory. So
I Yeah, 4 for 4 both nights in selection, and then did you guys have a star in the course? Did you guys have to do the 5 points?
yeah, yeah, we did.
That was a little. I thought that one was harder. Oh,
Well, that one was it was hard until the next event, which was just a bigger star because for whatever reason in the March timeframe '02, no team week. We just land naved by ourselves forever and ever. I think
that's not fair. They
there were
should.
two.
Doge should get involved here and investigate this.
No, I don't think so. There's enough oversight on SFS. I got a buddy there. It's under the microscope at all times. Why? Because they
Oh
need
yeah,
more numbers.
yeah. It's tough.
Why aren't you selecting more? That's the question every time. And it's like, how about we have a standard?
Yeah, what's more important, right? To just uphold the standard or to put people through? And then you start, well, we can train these people up later to make them up to the standard. Well, that's not the fucking point, is it? Yeah, that I know that bothers every enlisted. GB. I would say and the ones it doesn't bother, well, they can go fuck themselves. But
Right.
that's officers trying to make other officers to make other officers happy. Really, is what it is. What do you think?
Yeah. Um, so I had my last posting was out at Small Unit Tactics, and
What year?
my approach. Uh, I showed up in 20. I was basically done fall of 22.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
You
got
know
2 years,
You
and
know
then
Tom Bridgham?
Bridgham.
Yeah, he was over at SFAS. So
Oh no, that
no,
was
wouldn't know.
funny enough. It's Campbell calls tiny, but it's got its own little pockets.
Really, you don't
Unless
even.
you run into each other at the shop at the chow hall, or you're doing a weird coordination, like, hey, SUT and SFAS sometimes almost bumped into each other. So we had to, you know,
Mhm. Anyway,
yeah. Okay.
so
So what was I saying? Going out for SUT, to the question of that you asked, did I notice that from, because officers are doing their thing, numbers, etc. On the enlisted side, I had field team one, and for my cadre, when it came down to grading, or opposite instruction and grading, it's when we get to the end and it's questionable, and the kid's young and he's an X-ray, or he's just pin specialist before showing up to the Q course or something, like, we need to take the whole person into account. And then, is the kid teachable? Right? Did he mess up something, get retrained, move forward, and then just mess something else up? Or are we back to the same problem? Like, we had to look at the whole soldier before I'd be like, yep, drop them. That was my approach for my field team. A couple other guys in the company did it that way as well. And, just SUT is its own animal. The NCO, every senior NCO's got their baggage and their methods. So yeah.
do you think selection got the most pressure to push the most people through, or the most like influence in their ear about how to run things, or just it was what it was?
It had the most eyes on it because that's the entry point, right? And then the Q course in its entirety, every officer had its own set of eyes on them. So we had similar pressure. I can't compare it because I never had a long enough conversation with SVS, right? I just heard through, my guys going and talking to them and hearing rumor mills and stuff on what's going on. But we all had pressure to make sure our numbers didn't dip below. We didn't know what the percentage was, what that number was, but we couldn't dip below something.
Mm.
And we went and fought a couple of hard battles, because sometimes you get a class that's like, you get nothing but studs, and then you fast forward, and then you've got half of the 15 students you have per. So I had anywhere from 45 to 50 guys or more for my field training team, and then half of them are duds, and I'm just like, whoa, what do I do with this? So those were serious problems we had to work through.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, right? Because I had the opportunity to go to North Carolina at the end of last year, and the company I was working for, a lot of them were contractors at Sage, right? So,
Mm.
I have the only stories I have from Sage, because I was never at SWIC, or my stories. My story sucks because I got my go like on the first day, and then I never left the camps. My Sage kind of sucked. So I didn't see anything or how anything works or go to any meetings or all that. So I started asking these guys about questions, and then their stories and stuff. And I said, well, what about, people getting dropped? And one guy said he'd been on multiple lanes where the whole Sage team had been dropped. The whole thing. They had stopped training in the middle and dropped everybody, recycled them or dropped them from the course. I was like, really? That's fucking crazy.
That would not have happened in small unit tactics from 2020 to 2022. Maybe
Really?
into 2023. That would have never happened. I think the most I saw leave was 5 people out of a field team. So anywhere from 45 to 50 dudes.
Hmm.
Yeah. And when you start hitting those five, get closer to five, commanders got more interested in, like, hey, I need more paperwork. Like,
Yeah.
how bad is this guy? Okay, yeah, sure. Here's the packet. So,
Sort them out down the road, I guess.
and it was also kind of sad to see, because I had this super smart captain. Like, think tank smart. What was that? Goodwill Hunting smart, right? And this guy just paralysis by analysis. And I had to sit down with him and counsel him on just leadership traits and basic stuff. And I do go to the whiteboard and I'm like, okay, hey, here's your squad formation or when we go into platoon ops. All right. I just tried to work with him as much as I could because he was super smart. I'm like, there's going to be something that snaps and he's going to get it. He never got it. We had to drop him from the course because he just couldn't. And I had him explain to me, I'm like, okay, hey, I watched you during the patrol where you came up to a linear danger area, and it took you almost a minute to pick a tree to go take a knee behind. Talk me
Mm.
through that. And he went off. And it was a good minute of talking on decision points of, all right, I'm looking for a pine tree that is anywhere from so much in diameter to this. Think about cover. Okay, well, I don't want to be on a lone pine tree. I need pine trees to my left and right just in case I have to, go down to the prone position. And then, okay, what are my guys doing? And then I get lost in that. But oh, no, I need to take a knee. And I was like, okay, buddy, I get it now.
You've been a team sergeant already at this point, so you got to be thinking while he's talking to you, you got to go. No, you you got to go. You got to go, bud. You you got to go.
And his he could recite military history. I tried to pretend to keep up with him on certain subjects, and this guy was smart. He just and fit. He was a beast. Run, ruck, get just throw extra bodies on top of his rucksack, and get out of the when he was just a rifleman. He could crush it. But when he put him in charge, now paralysis by analysis,
Yeah.
and I hope he's off doing something awesome somewhere in not a basement per se, but somewhere in an environment with other people like him, hopefully with enlisted guys or former enlisted guys to keep him grounded. But I think he's going to do
He's
good things for the
he's
nation.
probably doing great things, writing technical manuals for the future of America's leaders right now. He's probably doing great things. But that was, you just the different personalities that go through the course, right? You got everybody's smart when you're everybody's smart. And then some people are just dumb smart where they're just, they won't fail anything. They'll have great grades, but you kind of talk to them and they're just kind of aloof, but they just rise to every occasion. And then you've guys just pure geniuses going through the course. Some of the best athletes I've ever run into. And it's just amazing that they'll all just get it done. If you're going to pass, you're going to pass. The guys will always find a way to pass in their own particular way, and they'll just make it happen. And you can kind of tell when somebody's, you know, not going to make it. You got to go. It's time. It's time to go.
And
So,
those were some hard conversations for sure.
yeah. Well, fuck them. Uh, all right. I know how it was for me. How was it for you getting that sheet of paper when they said, "Oh, you passed," and going back to your unit? Did you feel like, king shit at Turd Mountain?
I felt cool for about 10 minutes.
Oh,
And
only
then,
10?
I'm in the company AO. I think we're in the day room and we're rigging rucks or doing a simple task. And then, you know, I messed something up. Jump masters come back and looking at my rigging and my rucksack, and he's like, "Great, you're gonna be a Green Beret, awesome." And then he moves on because I messed it up, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is what it's gonna be the rest of my life if I pass that Q course." So the pressure mounted immediately.
Yeah. Who did I talk to last week? And they said something. That's how it was at the course when anything. Oh, he was on, his feet got so fucked up after selection. When he got to his unit, he was on soft shoe profile. And the dude's a stud, like at his unit, goes past his selection, comes back, and then Sergeant Major like chews him out. It's like, you're going to be a Green Beret on soft shoe profile? Like, fuck you, motherfucker. My feet hurt. God damn it.
Yep, and that was the attitude for a good chunk of it. But then I had that squad leader was still the same guy. I think he ended up being the platoon sergeant around that time. Memory's a little fuzzy, um, but he was uh, proud. And then again, but he would be one of those instigators, like, "Oh, so SF, right?" And when you mess up, but he was also the guy like pushing me to read more, do better at PT. Like, hey, you're going to be a teacher. Why don't you? You've got 2 winters behind you. We're doing our, going into another winter event. Hey, why don't you teach these guys how to set up the 10-man tent, right? So he pushed me to be better. And then we ended up with a first sergeant. So we're kind of fast forward a little bit. Did EIB, did PLDC or E5 school. And then we're winding down out of the summer going into the fall. My orders are coming up. I finally got them to go to the Q course. November '02 was when I was reporting. And we had a new first sergeant. And he shows up and he's getting to know everybody. He finds out that, I had made selection and I had orders for the Q course. And he pulls me aside. And I'm just sitting there on CQ, and it's like an afternoon. I'm going into the evening CQ thing, and he pulls me over. I run over there, rigid parade arrest, and he's like, "All right, first step, first step, hero. You're going into a different world. You're going to have to learn to read your environment, understand your uh, who you're talking to, right? And you're going to be in this new environment where if you're doing that, it's not okay." Well, this guy, come to find out years later, he was a best Ranger winner back in the '80s, and I can't confirm or deny where else he went after Ranger Battalion days. I think he was a Ranger Battalion guy. Like the history's vague, right? Because you hear this stuff through your buddies that end up going to war with him because they go to Afghanistan as soon as I go to the Q course. That was
How was that? Was that
that
tough to swallow?
so tough, dude, because all I wanted to do after 9/11 was go to war. And I had my brotherhood built. I knew we'd go do great things. We didn't go to war. I went to selection. Nobody's going to war. I'm waiting on orders. It took forever. I finally get orders November '02. You're going to be reporting out there. And I'm like, yeah. And then they get orders to start getting ready for Afghanistan that as soon as I'm locked into the Q course. I'm not going to not go to the Q course. But at the same time, I was pretty butthurt. So anyway, but that first arm, going back to the close out that point, was he opened my eyes to once I get into a different environment, start looking around. How do people act? And where you're going, that rigid airborne infantry parade rest or position of attention, unless you're standing on the carpet, yeah, it's not really a thing. So respect is,
Yeah.
but not big army respect. So that was one of those cool little lessons and one of those small little insights of people taking care of you. It wasn't the whole company at all, but it was a couple of guys that were proud to send one of their guys onto something bigger and better.
There's times for the pomp and circumstance, right? Especially if you just show up to group and you go to parade rest the first time, everybody's going to laugh at you, and that'll be the last time that you have to do it.
Yeah, I've got that story.
And and because I did, I knew coming because I was coming from a regular army unit. I knew the game. I'm gonna fucking do it until they tell me I'm stupid. You don't leave that to chance. I would see
No.
guys get chewed the fuck. I chewed people out because they would come to S3 to my master sergeant, and they would just be not blatantly, but they would be militarily disrespectful. And I'd go, "Hey, come outside and talk with me here for a second," and just be like, "Hey, I know I'm in PTs, but I'm Staff Sergeant so and so. You ever come in here and talk to that Master Sergeant again like that, I'm gonna fuck you up."
Right? How about just
Anyway,
some
here's your in
basics?
processing sleep.
Yeah, definitely showed up, went to parade arrest for my team sergeant. The team room was giggling for sure, but he was an old school Marine Corps guy that got out, came over to the Army, went to SF, and did some pretty cool things right after 9/11. He had some qualifications that he got to go do some stuff with other people.
Mm.
Let's leave it there. Anyway, but yeah, he was amused, but at the same time, if had I gone up to the same guy and just been like, "Hey, bro, I'm
No,
your new 18 Charlie," I would have been my rug. I didn't even have a rucksack at that point, but I would have been in the hallway.
get out.
Yep, done.
No, you got to know, and usually, first time that's all it is. Or if you, got a DUI, you might want to do that. But so,
Ugh.
yeah, so we miss out on the deployment. That's got to be tough. Do you think about that still, even after all the amazing shit you did in your career? Just that one. Is that a point that stands out?
Uh,
Because you had to be
it
pretty
would,
invested in that unit at that point.
yeah. So that was almost 3 full years in an infantry unit. Obviously, people come and go, retire, ETS, PCS, whatever. But there was that core group that showed up about when I did or extended to stay, whatever the reason. But there was a core group of us that been there the longest, and it was hard to see them start ramping up and getting money to actually go to the range and train with live ammunition versus what we've been dealing with before 9/11. Um, I'm not kidding you, man. We're cracking cases, and they've got born on dates in the 70s, like Vietnam 70s. So I think they were emptying out all the old stuff and shipping it up to us. I don't know, but it was tough to see him go. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I got to stay focused. Like, I can't just chase the shiny object. I made a decision to do this. Have orders. Let's do it. Just suck it up. So I get down there, a report. And student company was different back in those days. The Q course, I've listened to a few of your other podcasts. And that order, the Q course was a little different back then. So my first thing was PLDC, or uh, they smashed E5 and E6 PLDC,
We
and
called it
what
we
was it
called it
called?
we called it CLT, Combined Leaders Training. I don't know if that was
Yeah,
better.
no, definitely not a thing. It was primary leadership development course and was an advanced leader course. I can't remember the acronym. Anyway, E5 and E6 school smashed in right up front. That was your first 2 weeks out of Camp Call. Lots of manual review. It was just common core. That's all the focus was, and just crushing your soul in PT, because your next phase was small unit tactics, 46
Mhm.
days of fun and excitement. And yeah, so there I was. No shit. And back in the day, there was the Four Horsemen. That was the fabled four horsemen. And I ended up getting, I'm not going to say any names, but I think obviously I only experienced one of these guys, so obviously he was the worst one. He hated all of us. Hated being there.
What
Uh,
year is it? It's 2002 or 3?
2002, 2000.
2002.
No, oh yeah,
Now it's
2003.
three now,
Now
right?
it's
So
three, right?
these
So
guys, and I'm just gonna go by just timeline alone. These guys don't want to fucking be there at
oh,
all.
absolutely not. They
Yeah,
hated every one of us, and they took it out on us. It was, well, now that I've been in their shoes, it was glorious in the manner in which they kicked our ass, and it was horrible because we were the ones
yeah,
receiving the handout.
yeah. I hear that from guys that were X-rays at the time, right? That just took the brunt of it in 2005. So
Yeah, that was not a good time to be an X-ray. Oh yeah, '05, definitely. So there I was, March '03, going to 46 days of fun and excitement. Not only did we do the whole small unit tactics thing, we started off with show up to Camp McCall, get on a bus, go do another swim test because the one in selection wasn't good enough. Then we came back and did the STAR exam again after you did day and night sugar stakes, land nav. And I was like, well, why are we doing selection again? I'm so confused. And then we went on a terrain walk, just like we did in selection. And the guy I had was Army 10-mile team runner, and he was tall. He had like his legs, like he had a really small torso for his relative height, but he would just be meandering, and I'm like almost sprinting to keep up with him at 5'8". It was terrible. That was my first experience. First couple days with him. Had some issues and trying to keep up, and he stopped the patrol, or stopped. It's not patrol at this point. He's just doing a terrain walk, and he comes up and he's like, "Sergeant Kelly, if you fall out again, I'm dropping you from my course." And I'm like, I can't say his name, but Sergeant, if I can't stop and take a dump right now, I mean, you might as well call a truck right now, because I don't know what I'm going to do. He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I have to go so bad." And he's like, "Prove it." So I went up and dropped ruck, went up, leaned against a tree, and just nothing but pure angry. Nothing
sludge.
solid. Nothing solid. And it went on for a hot minute. And he's like, "Okay, cool. Clean yourself up, catch up with us, and don't fall out again." I'm like, "Roger that." That was that was day 2 of small unit tactics for me.
I've seen guys get saved from being dropped by the course by just telling the cadre that they have gastrointestinal issues.
I had to
This
prove
one
it,
guy,
but yes.
this one cadre, he God, what was his name? We called him Joey Bag of Donuts. So anybody that was in my year group will know who I'm talking about. But this guy falls out of this run and he comes running up, and the cadre calls him out. He's like, "Why'd you fucking fall out?" He's like, "Sergeant, I just really had to shit." And he goes, "I feel you, man. It's all right. I'll let you slide this time." And then he just turns around and runs off. I think
Well,
he had probably had a similar story like you had in the course when he had to explain himself and goes, "Yeah, all right. Okay. We'll let it go."
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean,
I
nothing
think
crazy for the. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
think with the order, right? They change up the order and they put different things wherever they go, and they're always trying to optimize it, right? But it's it's just shitty no matter what you do. Like they could just leave it and it's going to be shitty no matter what. And then the guys that are going to pass, they're still going to pass. And the guys that are going to fail, they're still going to fail. But all this moving of things around, even when I went through, there were half of our class had language at the beginning, and some of them had to do language a second time because they were in the course so long that they had to go back to language for 6 more months and just moving these things around. Do you think there's any benefit to trying to optimize the course, or just fucking leave it alone?
I mean, two trains of thought on it. Somebody needs an OER bullet.
Mm.
That's generally what we think at the enlisted side, enlisted levels. But at the same time, if you're not mixing it up, and it was like, wow, they're throwing words around. It's like they're trying to, the SF Enterprise or the SOF Enterprise, and I'm like, oh my god, we're going corporate. But the smartest thing I heard was we have to listen to our customer, and I'm like, okay, more corporate garbage, but it's a regiment. Like, what do they need coming out of this course?
Mm.
Right. Then when
Okay.
that conversation started happening, when I was a SWIC instructor before I retired, I was like, okay, this makes sense. Right. And I get into that later. We can talk about that one offline, but like it went deep and it was hard, and some people had to swallow some pride up at a little bit higher levels, but something didn't work. So we had to revert back to the way it was. But for my course, I thought it flowed well until it didn't flow well. So I did the NCO training, small unit tactics, MOS, Robin Sage. Awesome. Walked across the stage. Here's your beret. Don the green beret. Here's your Yarbrough knife. So we got the Yarbrough knife on the stage. And then by the time we're down on the other side of the steps, we're handing it to a guy, some supply guy, to put it in a box because we didn't earn it yet. We got to wear our berets, but no tabs, all through language school, going into SEER school. Finished SEER school before we got our tabs. It was interesting.
You had to go to SEER after the whole course?
That was the last thing. So there was no way I wasn't passing that bad boy. I just muscled through it. And it took, a decade of talking to other people and having those conversations. And like, I'm listening to a story and I'm like, oh, yeah, I should have done that. I didn't care. I just like put me in the people's pond, hit me as hard as you want to. I'm X amount of days away from getting my tab. I don't care. That's where
I
I
know what you
was.
mean there. SEER's an interesting experience, and this isn't giving anything away, but somebody told me something about the room once, and I went, God, how the fuck did I not know that at the time? And you just go, my whole life's been a lie.
Yep.
When you learn something new about that course, and you go,
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck have I been telling myself?
Right.
Fuck. But then yeah, also they snuck another concussion in on me on the course there because I mean we were minutes away from getting liberated. And that fucking guy, that one that goes on Naked and Afraid, one of the cadre, I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
I've heard about this guy and I know of Naked and Afraid, just never watched it.
He hit me so goddamn hard with minutes to go that fucking perfect. And I was not right for weeks. And I thought it was just because of that course. And then after I got hurt years later, looking back, I went, no, that motherfucker gave me a concussion with like 60 seconds to go till the end of the game.
Nice.
Fuck that guy. I hope
I
he's
can't
doing
remember.
doing well.
Yeah, right. Wish him the best. And
I
then
hope
we
I can
had
have
our
him on my.
guy.
Hey, if he ever wants to be on my show, just drop me a line. Lesser known operators at gmail.com.
That's a good plug right there. That's a good one. I can't remember his name, but he was huge. And by huge, I'm talking well over 6 feet. And his hands was like a bunch of bananas. So not worried about a handshake, but I'm worried about his hands wrapping all the way around my
Yeah.
head and hitting me on the other side of the face. That's how big this dude's hands were.
For everybody listening at home, SEER stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. It is the best 3-week course that the Army puts on. Fantastic block of instruction, hyper realistic, and the shittiest time you will ever have in the Army. Now, moving on.
If you're looking to drop 25 pounds in those 3 weeks,
It's a great
that's
weight
also
loss.
a fantastic side effect.
Great weight loss program. If you want constant headaches, weight loss, anger, depression, weird dreams afterwards, no food, and that's pretty much all you can say about that. That's like a Forrest Gump thing right there. But
Yep.
you're like in the club, and when you meet people that have gone to that school, you can kind of tell jokes about it. So that really sucks. I can't imagine, going through the whole course and then they go, "Hey, yeah, you gotta go out to Mott Lake for 3 weeks." Uh, what?
But
Why?
but
Who
like I
who
said, it
came
was
up
that
with that
mindset,
idea?
man.
Oh yeah,
I
you're
don't
gonna
know,
pass.
but
You're gonna pass, but
I think it
fuck
was
it.
fantastic because it's the last thing that there's, unless you get hurt,
Mm.
right? Or you, some kind of weird safety violation or something, like you're going to have a huge chunk of people pass because they just worked so hard to get there. No way they're not going to put their maximum effort in.
Yeah,
Genius.
yeah. Well,
Sadistic genius.
like you said, some OER bullet somewhere still got that on there. Just like after I got into group and somebody had made a comment to me about, prior unit, and I think back on it, for years, you were somebody's NCOER bullet on some platoon sergeant or staff sergeant or whatever they were, their NCOER. You were a bullet on there for years. Mentored a soldier through selection and went on to the Q course. So if somebody's always taking credit for some shit you did. So, well, you finally get your tab and your Yarborough. What's it like getting to that team room, knowing back to being the fucking new guy?
That obviously hit immediately. I walked in, not everyone's wearing a uniform top. You can't tell what, everyone's sporting. And then they put their uniform tops on and no one has sewn on stuff. I'm the only nerd in there with a EIB and jump wing sewn on my uniform. And like, I just can't really get a feel on it. But luckily, the company sergeant major had said, hey, this whole company just got back from round 2 in Iraq. So I knew CIBs were a thing. And I assumed that these guys weren't just hanging out on I didn't even know the mega fobs were a thing. I don't think they were. This was early
Right.
'05 when I'm showing up.
You got
Anyway,
an '05 to
but
'05.
yep. So
Okay.
let just let me roll through this one because it's a continuation of I
Here
still
we
haven't made it to war yet. Are you ready?
here we go.
Finished the Q course February of '04. SEER, liberated. Here's your tab. Here's your orders. Go ahead and get out of there. And I'm watching everyone get their orders. Now, obviously not right there at the end of SEER, but as we get back and we're doing paperwork shuffle and we're closing out the Q course and everyone's getting their orders. Everyone's like, yeah, okay, yeah, fit through. Well, we're super happy we're going. Everyone. And then I'm like, cool. I was told I was going to 110. I had to go see the lady. There's this lady. I can't remember her name, but she controlled everyone's orders.
Hmm.
Um, and I had to call her and then go see her. Normally she can handle everything on the phone. So I had to go see her. And she's like, yeah, you're supposed to go to 110, but looks like you have a exceptional family member, EFMP, and it's your daughter. I'm like, my 2-year-old daughter that went to the hospital 0 times. We took her to a specialist because, she's 2 and we're wondering why she's not talking yet, but she's doing pointy talky stuff. And she's like, yeah, they don't have any speech therapists in 110. So you got third group or 10th group. Where do you want to go? But this took, you got to say, everyone got their orders. And then fast forward 3 months while I'm a guest instructor at SOPC. Now I'm angry that I don't have orders, and I'm angry because I'm the new guy because I'm surrounded by fifth groupers that just got back from riding horses and killing people. To 10th groupers that have been in for a decade and doing other awesome stuff and other people, right? And I'm just like, I'm the new guy. I have zero team time and I'm supposed to bond with these dudes, which I didn't. And I'm just in this weird zone. Anyway, so I finally talked to her and she gives me an option. I could have gone to third group or 10th group because I have French. And I'm like, I just, tossed the coin. Well, I've got French. Let's go to 10th group. So I end up out in Colorado. And at this point, my original unit that I was assigned to goes to Afghanistan, and they did a year plus, like 13 months or something. I'm in the Q course, and I watched the invasion of Iraq on the Chow Hall TV, and not the Chow Hall that it is now. It was this tiny, very tiny building that you had to go in, snake through. You definitely don't look at the cadre, and you don't sit down. You go outside to eat off your little paper trays. So I'm watching two wars go on, and the last war that happened that I knew about was Gulf War, 91. I'm like, this thing's gonna, both of these are gonna be over before I'm through the Q course. Well, fast through the Q course, I'm getting there, and I'm like, okay, the wars are still going, both of them are still active, and we're ramping up. I get through the Q course, and then I'm paused at SOP C, and I'm like, oh my God, the war's gonna be over, and get orders. Get my family out to Colorado as soon as possible. I report early just so I don't miss the war. Get in. Company sergeant major's like, all right, sweet. You're going to 093. They just got back from a trip to Iraq, OIF2, but OIF3, we're ramping up. Charlie Company's not on the books, but we'll see what we can do. Try and get some teams out of here. And I show up to my team. Obviously, the whole parade rest thing, everyone laughs at me. We get through it, and then we just continue training. And I'm thinking we're training to go back to Iraq. Well, come to find out, Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 10th Group, was slotted for the last Kosovo rotation. Yeah, there I am again, waiting it out, deploy in August, come back in December of, was it 04, right? 04 is when I got there. Sorry, I've slipped it up there. 04 is when I get there, go to Kosovo, come back from Kosovo, go on Christmas leave, come back. It's January 05. And this is where 05 becomes important. Obviously, Afghanistan and Iraq are still a thing. And there I was, just normal workday, jamming out some 18 Charlie stuff, organizing my books. And then our doors propped open, and I just hear this thundering voice in the hallway. Who in my company doesn't have a CIB? All four of us new guys run out of different team rooms into the hallway to meet up with Sergeant Major. And so, correct, 3rd Battalion had redeployed out to OIF 3, Operation Iraqi Freedom 3, and he was looking for some volunteers to fill some gaps, right? Some, guys couldn't deploy, guys had to go home early for whatever reason. Obviously, some injuries or some deaths and all that stuff. So, yeah, all four of us raised our hand, and that was my first trip 2005
So
to Iraq.
not with your team.
No, Lone
So how
Ranger.
did you just filling in as needed?
Yep. Yeah. So three of my guys, three of the guys in the company, they went to teams. And then I show up to the RPC Palace right off of, we got Baghdad International Airport. We got our little section over here. It just happens to have this palace on it called RPC. I show up, I meet the first sergeant there at the sports center. Then I meet the ops sergeant major as we're all coming in and everyone's getting spliced out to teams. Well, like we were the last of the, what do you call it, replacements or fill-ins. And they're like, yeah, teams are full. They don't need any 18 Charlies, but I got a job for you. So I ended up working the Legion Security Force, which was with another Green Beret. So we had the Iraqi Guard Force that had our little peninsula around on the very outside of the Baghdad International Airport. That was my first trip to war.
Mm.
Not,
Interesting.
no, it was, now my
I do
buddy had
sympathize with you
connections.
there. I do sympathize with you there though, because that near miss and then thinking about it and you have these ups and downs. I mean, I've been out many years now and I still think about it. Like I had an opportunity to do some shady shit when I was on permanent profile and the unit was gone to get there, just to get that on that one line on my ERB that I could have at least deployed to Afghanistan to go on like I forget what it was, because there's always a couple open slots for guys to go and reenlist. And I fucking thought about it. I gave it, I mean, but and I probably could have got away with it. Could have got there and got back without really anybody noticing because we were on Yeah, I could have done it, and I still was like, "Nah, man, I'm not going to do that to somebody if something goes wrong." But it's still, I always think about it. I never got to go. I never got to deploy as a Green Beret, and it's interesting because guys, and now I'll talk to people, and they'll go do it, and they'll go, eh, you know, eh,
Hmm.
wasn't, it just was it, and like another guy, 24 years, I talked to him, and most of the stuff he did was on the intelligence side. Yeah, he got to deploy, but he never really did the shit they show in the shows. And that's kind of hard
Right.
for me to process, or guys that haven't gone to process, to go 99.9% of our job is not that. And
Right.
that's the only part we think about, or that gets glorified. And that's doesn't make me feel any better, but maybe I'll get over it. Maybe I just will think about it less.
Well, yeah, and the messed up part is I got 3 trips to Iraq within a 5-year period on my first team, and then I went to the B team, got some awesome lessons learned how to do the paperwork to make the training happen, and then I moved down, took over as the Fox, and then fast forward, I end up just being the team sergeant for that team, but no war. Like once I was done with team sergeant time, I had double like whammy, punchy in the face realization that you're done with team time and like there's a war going on and you ain't there.
You're not invited.
Yeah,
Uh,
like permanently not invited.
so you said 3 trips in 5 years. And that was the majority of was that all your junior enlisted time? Or not junior enlisted? I guess I say that, but
Where we're
there's
from,
no, we're from this junior enlisted time. Yeah, that's weird to say, right? E6 is the private in the company. So, and that, did you have the reins on a combat deployment as a team sergeant?
no, I didn't.
No. Okay.
So I did 18 Charlie, and then in between trip 1 and 2, went to the 18 Fox course with a handful of other schools. So trip 2 and 3, 18 Fox, and did team sergeant time on my last trip because my team sergeant had some family issues. So I deployed the team. Within a month or so, he shows up, takes the reins, and this is a 9-month deployment, which is crazy for an SF team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere's in the middle, he had to go home again, another family event. So at this point, we've got our fit force, we're trained them up, we're executing operations. Nothing crazy though, because we're '08 going into '09, so we're really kind of shutting Iraq down at this point. But we did get out there and see a little bit of stuff, nothing super kinetic at all. But we did couple up the number 2 HV, we'll call him HVT for our province, Babel province. We were able to scoop him up. So that was a pretty exciting day. So I got to be a team sergeant for about 3 months at a 9 in a combat place or deployment. So that was pretty cool.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's one of the things that stand out, but we've got, like I said earlier, 0.1% of the job is that mission, right? And the rest is all the other shit that you got to do. I mean, what's some of the other places you went with the team, if you can, like on
Nothing crazy, right? So oddly enough, my first team, 5 years, deployed to Kosovo and then Iraq 3 times, schools, and then I did a rando singleton down to NTC to
Mm.
evaluate 2 different ODAs going through to get ready to go do something. That was crazy because I pinned E7 like 5 seconds ago. And now I'm evaluating an E8, a captain, and all these senior dudes that have been to war multiple times. I'm like, I feel kind of out of place. Anyway, that's a funny story all by itself. But that was my first 5 years. Then I did B team, moved down to the Hall, 18 Fox for a little bit. The 10th Group CSM got cancer, so 3rd Battalion CSM took his spot, which means Charlie Company. Out of all the companies, Charlie Company's Sergeant Major moved up to Battalion Sergeant Major, and the team I went and took, that team sergeant stepped in. So I ended up de facto ish the team sergeant. But when the guy that's actually owns the team is down the hall, you're not really the team sergeant. But then E8 list comes out. No shit, I just happened to pick up, which is scary because I only had 5 years of team time. And then they were like, here you go, buddy. Here's the most important job we have in special forces. Good luck.
Hmm. Wow.
So,
So because you come into the zone and you get ready like you're gonna, I'll get picked up eventually, but you got to do it every year. Was that a total surprise that you made promotable at that time in service?
It was because all the people I grew up with, like when I showed up to my team, everyone except for my senior 18 Charlie, which I had on the team for 6, 8 months, maybe, were in their 30s, and not like I got I turned 30 last week. As a lot of these guys are pushing mid to later 30s, and then the team sergeant was close to 40s. So it was an older team, like SF guys should be, in my opinion, or a good mix at least, right? A little bit more seniority than younger guys. Um, yeah. So there I was. Let's see, this was 2010. The list came out, and they're like, congratulations. So I was 29 years old. I turned 30 later that year. I pinned in 2011, still not even 31 years old.
Mhm.
And although awesome, I was, I wish, I think you've asked this a couple times. I don't want to ruin your final questions, but if I go back to a point in time, I wish I could be older. If I could just fast forward a little bit, a little more maturity, and do the team start thing again.
Oh,
So
that's all right. That's the beauty. I'll also revisit a point in time and ask the same question just for uniformity's sake in the end. So no worries there. Yeah. You get a great opportunity, and especially in the Army, they just tell you you're going to do this, right?
mhm.
But, if somebody presents you with a great opportunity, like Richard Branson says, just accept it and figure out how to
Mhm.
do it later. And I was talking to somebody else about going to like CAG selection or something like that, right? You know, Probably could have done it when I was in now, but now the maturity level now and the knowledge now at this age and where I'm at, that would be the right place to do it.
Mhm.
Like knowing now what I know now about and then. Like then I was kind of a dick, you know. Now I'm just a little bit smarter about it and more mature and have experience. But yeah, you look back at some of those things like, oh man, I wish I would have had that. But you don't. You get what you get, especially in the Army. They just tell you what to fucking do. That's kind of what's great and shitty about it is you don't really have to figure too much out except how to do the thing. Your
Yeah.
career path and things they're just thrown at you. What so what stood out? So you finish up your team time, you get your team, and you go to that. And I mean, 31. Yeah, even saying that, it's pretty young. That's a pretty young guy, especially in SF, because I think the average age in the team room was like 30, right?
Right. So a lot of my
So
peers are now subordinates, if you're going to put technical terms on it, right?
what was did you take a team of people you knew, or did Sergeant Major
Yeah.
move you companies? Ooh,
Yep. So I was already on the team from about September '09 ish. And I was just the Fox, but I was the senior guy. I wasn't writing NCOERs, but the team sergeant was leaning on me for everything else. He already had the calendar. I didn't have to do any long range planning or anything. He's just like, here's the keys. Don't crash it into a tree, right? So I was running it, but I wasn't running it because he had me in his office every other day checking in. And then the
hmm
list happens. And now he came down officially in front of everyone, which I think was the right move. But now I've got a bond of, depending on the person in the room, because I've been in the same hallway for the last 5-ish plus years. I've known these guys. You're not besties, but you've done
hmm
training with them, a school with them, a deployment with them, bumping into each other. You know these guys, and then I'm there for 4 months, and SF guys generally bond real quick, especially if you show up and you're not the new guy, but you're from down the hall and your name isn't crap. Then bonding happened. So now when the sergeant major walks in and says, "All right, Tom, you're officially on the promotion list. This is your team." He walks out, closes the door, and then just that slow head turn. Everyone looks at you. That was awkward.
Is that why? Because the first note I have from your book is no longer one of the boys. Is that why it comes up so
Oh yeah.
quickly because of the situation that you were put in? Because usually for everybody listening at home. Usually, you'll go to a different company or a different battalion to take a team to avoid
Right.
this exact situation. So is that that explains a lot. That the first thing that come up in your book is I'm no longer one of the boys.
Right. And I rode that train because I'd built relationships there. But, just like any team environment or, tight knit, the idea is you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but you have to work together to get the mission done. Right. And we all know that down to the core. But you're going to click with at least somebody on the team, or you end up being the weirdo, that doesn't click, and he does his 3 or 4 years and tries to go down to the B team or tries a different team, and either SF he finds his click or he doesn't. And SF's not his path. But generally, you find a guy or a small group of guys that click, right? So I'm kind of that social butterfly floating around trying to make friends with everyone because I'm the fox, and but kind of the boss, but not the boss. So it wasn't that serious. But now I've got all these relationships, and hey, Tom, you're in charge. So I was one of the boys. I mean, good thing it wasn't for the last 5 years one of the boys, but at the same time, now I've got guys coming up, and that's when it changes, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
Tom, I was talking to, former team sergeant, leaving his name out. I was talking about so and so about, I'm lined up for ASOT. I'm lined up for this school. Hey, I'm fighting for this SWIC slot because I'm on the SWIC levy, but he was helping me get to XYZ school. I want to be in Robin Sage instructor or whatever. And now it's like, okay, all right, let's make it happen. And you're just trying to do everything for everybody. And then all of a sudden, it's only the guys that you had kind of clicked with, so the asking the questions, and the guys are getting left in the cold because they need stuff too, but they're not coming up and hitting you up because you didn't build that bond, or they see the guys that you built the bond talking to you, and you only got so much time in a day,
Yeah.
you can't share it with everyone. So I'm not saying the team crashed and burned, but you do that long enough, and you're not an effective leader, right? Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
what I've felt and experienced.
And then, so, you know, all things equal, team sergeant steps out, and it's, a team, generally a team of senior E6s and E7s, right? How long did it take you to kind of come to the realization that I'm now in front and I need a lead from the front?
Luckily, in my short time, multiple trips to Iraq, by the time we're my third trip, it wasn't the team sergeant and the captain leading everything leading up to these events. And then when you get overseas, depending on your team and the mission set, E7s and some squared away E6s are straight up leading stuff. I mean, the captain may come and tote, but it isn't the whole ODA going out. It's a split team op or this, right? So I've I didn't feel freaked out yet because, oh hey, we're going to a range. Oh hey, we're doing some fast rope training or this because we're getting ready for this trip, right? And our first away trip was down to New Mexico, but like I said, everything was already planned out. The calendar, the training concepts, everything was already approved. So all I had to do was review those, talk to the captain, talk to the senior guys, or if there was a specific instructor on the team on what we're going to do, lean on them, and let's go. And I was in observation mode. Or you get asked those questions. So hey, right or left? That's the best way to kind of throw that analogy out. Is you got a left turn or a right turn at a decision point, and I would just pick what I thought was right, and we're going, and everything was smooth because everything was planned out. It was easy ish up front.
Easy-ish, easy-ish. So you wrote you had to, when you take the team, you got to have an assessment period, right? To see what you're working with. Did you feel like you already had that done when you were there? Did you already have your perception of what the capability of the team was?
Definite in the disadvantaged state of being one of the boys. The advantage was I knew how the team operated. I knew what the Bravos, like we had been to the range multiple times. So when it was range time, like I'd already seen, oh, hey man, last time you forgot a staple gun. Let's not have to drive back from range 9 to grab a staple gun, right? The basics. Like I'd seen those little things and throw out little reminders here, there, or ask a question if I hadn't seen it yet. But yeah, I had a pretty good assessment, but it wasn't from the same lens. I was
Yeah.
de facto in charge, but not in charge. Now I am in charge, and if somebody fails, it's my fault.
How long had your team leader been on the team when you got pinned?
He had been there for a good chunk of time,
So
and
he's leaving soon then.
yeah, he's. I think he was definitely at the halfway point, maybe a little further. So I had a fantastic team leader. He wanted nothing to do with NCO business unless, he told me straight up, and actually I threw my counseling form in one of the the back of the book, but it wasn't on there explicitly. He's like, "Hey, I'm not going to touch NCO business unless the ship starts sinking, right? My job is up and out marketing, and then if we're overseas, I know my job, but we will train to that standard." So he was a great guy. So I knew I had at least 6 months with him, maybe a year, depending whoever was available to come in, take his spot. And funny story with that, 10th group had decided to add their 4th battalion around this
Mm.
time. So 4th battalion was old 3rd battalion. That seemed to be the, the line moving forward because my captain got pulled to go over there and take a team. So he ended up getting more team time. He made majors, stayed there for a bit. And then it turned into multiple teams with just warrant officers. And I didn't have a warrant officer. So I had the choice of 2 warrant officers to bring into the team. So the company commander and the sergeant major pulled me in. They're like, "Hey, here's your 2 guys. I happen to know one of them, but I knew him." And I was like, "Well," and I looked at this other guy, and I got paper envy. He had all of the right stuff on his paper, right? And different experience. He didn't come from this hallway. So in my mind, like I was trying to trust my gut, and I'm like, okay, that's a different experience. Let's bring him in. Maybe we can learn something new. Maybe he's got cool new wizardry stuff, and he'll be the detachment commander for a bit until we get a captain, and then I'll have a solid warrant, right? That was the thought process
Mm.
until he showed up to the team. And we sat down. I'm like, "All right, hey, this is CW2 so and so." And the team's sitting there. And he said something along the lines of, "I went warrant to fix the NCO Corps." And I'm
Oh,
like,
you're not.
"Everybody
That's
out."
not gonna. That's not gonna work. It's like that captain at SUT. Oh, this is just. You're not. Sorry, you're not gonna work out here.
Yeah. But I was in the pickle because we were aligned to do a J set. And the powers to be, you have to have a commissioned officer in whatever capacity, commissioned officer to, to deploy. So
Yeah.
we made some adjustments, did some things, got ready, and then we did our first trip out to Azerbaijan. That was our second JSET that year. First one was South Africa. But yeah, that was interesting for sure. And that story shows up. I don't think I listed the country in the book, but now it's out there that we had the warrant and there was a particular situation that we had to handle.
Everybody's you got to stand for something, and sometimes there's no business for that something to be in the team room. Yeah. It's too bad. How much in a normal scenario is it the master sergeant, the 18 Zulu's responsibility to train? Because the captain, right, is fresh out of the Q course in most cases. How much does it fall on the 18 Zulu to bring that captain up to speed for his 18 months of team time?
Yeah, that weird number, 18 to 24 months. That is not a lot of time. And I definitely take some time in the book to express this one. It's not my term. I think I stole this from someone. Reverse mentorship. If the 18 Zulu throws the captain in the corner, hands him a pen or here's your computer, sign this, let's go brief this, don't mess up. And then, sure, you can jump out of the plane, you can get on the boat, you can patrol through the woods or whatever. That doesn't set the leader up for the captain up for success. So I knew that going in from my previous experience. Actually, my first team leader and team sergeant, super strong team sergeant, and a former enlisted captain. So their dynamic was, yeah, the captain understood, hey, I'm here for signatures and this and that. But I also heard, you know, in Kosovo, we're on a 3-story house. I'm just underneath the opsen or close to it. I can hear the fight, right? And, sometimes the captain would win and sometimes the team sergeant would win, but they always came out of the opsen or wherever behind closed doors on a unified front, right? So that's kind of one of those lessons I learned. But I want to take it a little bit further. I'm like, hey, I don't know everything. I got 5 years of team time. what does this captain have? Generally, at that point in life, this captain, if he came from a combat arms background, at least has a deployment under his belt as a lieutenant. Maybe he got an XO trip too. Who knows, right? And maybe he's prior enlisted, so he's got all these deployments. So that was in
Yeah.
my head. I'm like, two have to know more than one. So that's how I approached it with that reverse mentorship. It's like, you got to bring him in. We got to make decisions together. I don't want to say anything to make you look stupid and vice versa. We never want to go into a briefing room together, or, if we're separated, we've got to have the same voice to sell the team. So that was my idea. I don't think I held up my end a couple times and vice versa, but that was the general goal.
Yeah. Yeah. The the whole disregarding of the commander, that's a non-starter. I don't think that doesn't set a good example for the rest of the team, especially because these guys are going to grow up to be senior guys eventually down the road. And just to not use every asset available to you and say, for a master sergeant to puff out his chest and say, I'm in charge and this is my team. That's, it is true, but you don't say it. There's no, but why did you put in the book, never make a promise to the guys you can't keep? Any story
I
behind
mean,
that one?
specific story? No, that I can say here or in the book. Obviously, I didn't list it out, but we try and do things to take care of guys. Um, One of the stories that we just can't say out loud is trying to take care of a
Yeah.
guy around reenlistment time, right? We don't
Yeah.
really talk about that shit out loud. But on the other side, it's like, hey, man, you said you wanted sniper school. I got sniper school. I got this one lined up. It fell out of the sky. I've got it for you. And just saying it before you know it. Like, you think it's right, but you didn't take that extra step. You didn't turn in this piece of paper. You didn't see the school code approved with your dude's name on it at battalion schools. Like, you didn't go to the extra step to confirm. And you're like, I got you sniper school. And then he doesn't have sniper school. That hurts because, that guy, he was waiting for that school for a very long time. And I thought I fought hard enough. I thought I did my part to get it. And by the time he left the team, never had sniper school. So that was massively disappointing, obviously for him more than me, but it took a little bit away from it that I couldn't take care of my guy.
Yeah, it's a fast way as a new team sergeant coming in to lose clout with the boys, right? Is to start saying shit and then nothing comes of it. You wrote never be satisfied, right? And I kind of took that as, look at your team time, 18 of 24 months, to not that I have 24 months, it's that I only have 24 months of team time, and to look at it that way and to redline it. Is that kind of what you thought putting that in there?
Yeah, it's never be satisfied with what you've done, right? So I didn't hear this one until, crap, was I think I was done with team time at this point, but I heard never hang from the tab, hold it up, right?
Hmm.
I was like, okay, that makes sense. And
I'm going to
then
write that down.
through reading and conversations and everything else, and it becoming part of the book, is never be satisfied, right? Well, sweet. Hey, is our SOP up to date? Team SOP? Like, as a mountain team, new stuff comes out every year. New Gucci stuff or new 60 ways to do stuff and TTPs. How often do those things change? Like, you send a guy to Sephardic and then you send another guy to Sephardic 2 years later and the whole game's changed, right? So never be satisfied. Know the old stuff. Don't file it away. No, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Hold on to that little gem, because when you go down overseas, you're not teaching the Gucci stuff to the fit partner, right? So you got to hold on to that old stuff. But yeah, never be satisfied. Like, hey, yeah, I'm on a team. I'm a team sergeant. Or as you progress, right now, you're the team sergeant. Don't be satisfied with your PT, right? You don't have to be first, but you sure as fuck can't be last on the PT run, on the ruck, on the anything. You can't be the last guy. I mean, that's not setting the right example. Unfortunately, I was that guy. I let myself go a little bit, but then I came back. But, comeback stories are only cool to you.
Right. Yeah. Um, at the end of the day, yeah, as long as you're making yourself proud. But it is good. What I've from this talking to guys, it's paramount that it's so important to the guys what their team guys say about them years later. Reputation is everything. That's really the most important thing we take out of this is, You want guys to say good shit about you behind your back after you're done.
Yeah.
I think. And when I was in, that was stressed to me. Reputation is everything in SF. It's not like a normal civilian job where if you ruin your reputation at a job, you can go get another one. You are only one person away from somebody knowing everything about you in group, no matter where you are, anywhere. There's somebody that
So true.
knows your sergeant major. They went through the course together or something. We all went to the same fraternity. They're gonna figure it out. How important is it to keep the men informed, the guys on the team informed of what you're doing and why you're doing it?
I think the word clutch. Yeah, clutch. I'm gonna go with
Exactly what you
clutch.
wrote.
Fantastic. I think I put it in there. All right. Super important because if the guys don't know what's coming, so your 6 week or 9 week calendar, whatever the team sergeant's responsible for in that battalion for that company, every group's different. So whatever your 6 week calendar is, it's got to be posted. If it changes, you got to update it. Why? Because obviously multiple reasons. One, the training's coming up, a change happens, it shifts left or right, whatever. Well, if it shifts left or right, that 18 Delta that you signed his leave form is going to be gone for that training, right? And you need an 18 Delta to execute the training because it's whatever risk level. And you have to have the guy with the APEC on the training course. So now any changes, if you don't communicate the changes to the team or up and out, like, hey, Sergeant Major, this happened. This training shifted. My 18 Delta is out. I'm not going to tell them not to go on leave. Can I borrow an 18 Delta? So communication down to the boys, communication up into whatever level of the Starfleet command you have to go to make training happen, right? So the guys have to do the training, but the guys also have a personal life. And that's going to change your focus at least 3 times a day. Oh, hey, boss, you remember you gave me that pass? Oh, hey, I had this doctor appointment. Hey, I've got this. You said I could go sign my papers because I just bought my house. Yeah. So keeping note of all those promises made or the paperwork for official leave and that, like, if you don't keep up with it, you're going to look like an ass, which I did a few times.
Well, you survived. What when did you realize on the team that, oh shit, this is my responsibility? Is there something that went wrong, an event where you went, oh fuck, I have to take responsibility to this to Sergeant Major?
Yeah, it was actually pretty quick. We were in South Africa,
Here we go.
and yeah, so there we were, South Africa. Just was training with their SF level units and some police units. Just some basic CQP stuff and different. We trained 51%, they trained 49%. Just going back and forth with training. We went and saw some of their survival school stuff, but we were there for 6 weeks, and we were not far. We had a little burger joint, but maybe an hour ish outside of that. We were in a bigger city with clubs and all the discotheques and all the things you want to go do when you're in your mid 20s to mid 30s, right? And yeah, we took advantage, and we came back the next day. It wasn't a big training day. In fact, it was kind of a down day because we had trained hard and it was kind of the day off. And we came in for the company brief. We're there. We're engaged. Here's our training plan. Here's our request for logistics, all the things. And the company sergeant major is like, hey, Tom and Alex, why don't you sit here for a second? Everyone else leaves. He's like, you guys, I'm drunk just being in the same room you're in.
Mm.
We definitely brought back the night before, and it was reeking through our pores. So at that point, there's other facets to this story that I'm not going to say here. Definitely not in
Yeah.
the book, but if we're ever face to face, this story will make a lot more sense. It got ugly, but at that point, right there, it was a massive wake up call. It was like a baseball bat to the side of the head, and I knew I was in charge. So
Yeah. I'm in charge. I better start acting like it, right?
yeah, which
Well,
I did to an extent, but then I try to stretch those lines, and that's why certain other things are in this book as well.
I alluded to this earlier, and I've even got a little star next to it and a quote. Good on you for sneaking a dodgeball movie reference in there to this, but Admin is king, right? Especially in our unit and others like it. If you get fall behind on your paperwork, you're a shit team, right? No matter how well you perform in training, if you are red on dental or your spreadsheets aren't updated, you're going to hear about it, and there's going to be no end to it because then the other things will pop up that you're not up on. Oh, your property book. Oh, this, we haven't been to this training. Oh, you didn't jump on all these other things. How fast did you already have a pretty good handle on it, or how fast did you realize that I got to stay ahead of this or that's going to eat me alive?
So I had a pretty good handover. Like I said, training calendar was good. 6 week calendar was good. And it was cruise control when I showed up. But then it was like, hey, where's this NCOER? Hey, have you done this? What? Whoa, hold on. You guys are behind on immunizations. It just started. I'm like, okay, hold on. Timeout. Wait a second. How much more of this is there? So the guy that was in charge of the team that now I'm in charge of is still the company sergeant major. So I finally go sit down with him. Of course, it's after hours when he's finally free. And I'm like, hey, where's the keys to success here? It's like, I see your books. I see this. There's some trackers. Like, how much of my time am I supposed to dedicate to this? And then I got the full spiel. Like, he verbally tried to give me this handbook, right? And I'm like, wow. I'm like, did you ever go to the range? I mean, I'm looking at the mountain of stuff that you just told me I have to keep track of and update and write and this. And he's like, yeah, you go to the range. Or sorry, you come in, you do PT, you go to the range, you come back to the office, you make sure guns are cleaned and turned in and accountability's done. And then when everyone leaves, you stay until the work's done. And I'm like, that's why you're on divorce three. He's like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, got it. Sweet. I'm going to let my
Yeah.
wife know that it's coming.
You're not infantry till your first divorce, and you're not SF till your second divorce.
Well, I broke the mold on that one. Definitely infantry status, check. But wife number two, she's stuck with me the last 17 years. I'm not sure why. I've been still getting yelled at for the same things, but she's still with me.
Well, women do strange things. Uh,
That's true.
or they feel bad for us. Now you're in the seat. What's it like getting that new guy walk through the doors?
That's an excellent question. I was not prepared for this question at all. Or the follow-up question you probably have lined up. God, that was weird. Everyone's in the team room. Hey, Tom, new guy's here. Hey, man, come on up here. And it was brief. It was fast. It was like, hey, what's your name? What MOS are you? Because at this point, like we're so busy, the sergeant major doesn't even have time to give me an email. Hey, Tom, you're getting your new 18 Charlie today or next week or whatever. Like we weren't sitting and doing these gain roster meetings or nothing. It was just dudes show up and they're like, hey, I'm signed here. And I had a lot of that. But my first guy, it was quick conversation. Hey, you married? You got kids? Have you bought your house yet? Are you renting? Yeah, I'm just making sure he can have somewhere to put his head. Does he have a vehicle that's reliable? Does mom and kids need any additional help? Like just enough to, like it was fast and furious because I think we were getting ready to go out the door for a training event or a something. It was fast. And I'm like, hey, do you have kit? Right? It's like one of those questions like, hey, can you come to the range with us or this training event with us? Um, it was fast, even though we weren't on the playbook to go to war, but we were always training, always getting after it, just to get ready for J sets or just to, in my mind, hey, if we can be the best team, maybe we can end up on that, Afghan playbook or whatever, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was fast and furious, but I didn't have time to feel about it. I think that's the best answer.
How important is that initial counseling to lay out what you expect from the new guy?
Obviously, writing the book well post Team Siren time. I can say the word critical and absolutely mean it. Um, but when you're in the seat and I mean, this book is great. It has a lot of the things to think about, especially counseling. But when you're in the seat, it comes super fast. And it is difficult to find the time to carve, not find the time, but to carve the time out of a day of an ODA getting ready to go do XYZ, to sit a dude down and legitimately say, hey, this is what I expect from you, right? Whether you're the Bravo Charlie Delta Echo, or you're getting the new Fox transfer from a different company, he's showing up from SWIC or whatever. It's extremely difficult to sit down and have that solid conversation, because if you do it during duty hours, B team's pounding on your door, phone is ringing. And if you're ignoring your phone, someone else is walking up with their phone and handing it to you saying, hey, Sergeant Major's called you 6 times. I mean, why aren't you answering? Right. So, like, it's hard to do that. So it turns into, well, do we do PT and do I do a truck side at the PT event, or do I hold him later? And I know just from initial conversation, he's married with small kids and they just moved to a new city and just bought a new house and he's got a wife and kids at home. And he's, how long does this conversation have to be? It's so much to take in. But I found that generating by MOS, hey, here's my initial counseling, what I expect from each MOS. I had something, but honestly, it's the conversation you have with it. You can have all the paperwork you want, but it's the conversation. I'm sure you got this massive checklist that you want to go down, but what's more important, the conversation we're having or the checklist getting through it to say, hey, yeah, I did this podcast?
Oh, I fucking got way too many notes. I'm not going to get to all these. I just wrote them all down, you know? See, I'm just jumping subject to subject, but I'll lay out a situation and maybe you'll tell me it's all fucked up. So I got to my team and and I thought about this for a good couple minutes. I have never, I'm fairly certain this is a correct statement, had a counseling in the military, good or bad. No one. Not at my first unit, not while I was in the course, not when I got to my team, not when I was getting out, nothing. And I've never signed a 41, 59, what is it? 4187? I don't know, counseling form.
4187
Doesn't
moves
matter.
you from place to place and
Oh yeah,
schools
that's
and
a
stuff.
reassignment. Anyway, I never got a counseling. I can say that because when I got to my team, our initial counseling was on a fucking Word document, and there was another person sitting next to me, and it contained phrases like how to deal with support personnel, use wall-to-wall counseling is if necessary. I really wish I still had that document because this one sergeant in the motor pool was asking me about my former team sergeant at one point, and I said, "Oh, I know how dumb he is," and I brought him my initial counseling, and he fucking sent it to everybody, and I really wish I still had that to show people how bad my I think because this is all a lot of concussions right in after there how bad my first experience getting to a team was. So the only reason I say that, because I told you the only person I'll shit on is my first team sergeant, is I hope something will come out of it to clear up some of these memories. Maybe I'm completely wrong and I'm remembering things differently, but if anybody listening out there has any points to clear that up and wants to dispute anything I just said, please write us in at lesserknownoperators@gmail.com. So how do you determine if somebody on the team is not a good fit or you got to fire a guy?
I mean, it's depending on the guy. It's like I didn't have an experience where it was immediate. Like within a week, you just know, yeah, this is a walking safety violation, or this guy's going to trip and fall and shoot somebody in the back. Like you never know within a week, right? So it builds over time. You have to stay vigilant and, just personalities, right? You're going to have, you know, a senior seven walk up and be like, hey, man, I mean, I know I'm a Bravo and that's the Charlie lane, but this guy's, he's going to mention something, right? And then you're going to get somebody else mention something. Then you're going to get that guy senior walking up to you and be like, boss, this guy's got to go. And I'm like, cool. Where's his paperwork? Because we're in the new army. I can't throw his ruck in the hallway anymore. I got to have paperwork. And so there we go. Now, then I'm paying more attention. Once I've got a couple of guys walking up, and it's not single source operations. I got to have multiple source. So now I'm paying attention. Cool. So we go to the training event X and we're at the range and then we're doing a jump. And now I'm ninja focused on this dude, which is never good because I'm only looking for bad stuff. I'm not looking at potential good stuff. Right. So it is terrible to ask that question because you have to just open your lens and see what it is. You don't know when you're going to know he's a bad fit for the team. It's just going to happen naturally. So that was a
Yeah.
terrible question.
Welcome to the show. So obviously, guys are different, right? You'll get different guys on a team, and as you said earlier, right? You'll look at their ERB or their paper, and it'll tell you one thing, and then the person will tell you a different thing. How how important is it to be able to make those initial assessments right away and make the correct decision as the sergeant in the seat?
So I thought I'd learned this perfect lesson by looking at an ORB to select a warrant officer to come to the team, and then it turned out to be a different situation. So I was like, yeah, cool. I can apply that to everything. No, you can't. So two couple things are going to happen. Either you have just a dude that's been in long enough and he is that badass that he puts himself in, or someone sees talent and they send him to schools and he's got all these schools stacked up and he's in between deployments and he just was lucky and it all just got laid out in front of him and he has the skill and aptitude and everything to go with it. And he shows up to your team and you're looking at it, you're like, yes, this is amazing. Or you're looking at it and um, no one on the team liked him. So he has all of these schools because they sent him away. But according to the Army, if you go to more than, you go to a school a year and this and that, that's pushing you on the promotion track. So it's like you can't make a determination off paper, right? So then you got to, which I never did because I was so insulated and focused on my team. I should have reached out into my network. Once you look at a piece of paper, it's cool. Yeah, that's great. Or no experience, all the experience down the middle of the road. Reach out. It lists where he was. Pick up a phone. Call the network. Hey man, I went to SLC with you like 5 years ago. You still in X group, first group, third group, whatever. This. Hey, I've got to do it on a gains roster. Have a conversation. Our regiment is big, but it's tiny in comparison to the rest of the planet, the rest of America, whatever. Pick up the phone. Call a friend.
Did you ever use the other team sergeants as resources, or did you just kind of just wing it?
No, immediately. Because I was moved up to the B team and I was a E7. I wasn't junior, but I was a mid to senior seven, whatever, because turnover was coming fast and furious. But now I'm the B team op sergeant. Now I've got access to all these team sergeants. So all I did was review concepts, go ask questions, this, that, and the other. And then as soon as the sergeant major's like, hey, don't forget those NCOERs and the award for this guy retiring or this guy PCSing or ETSing or whatever, now I'm learning how to do this. I'd never had done any of that, or in counseling, right? So all these things hit me as the B team op sergeant, and I had made friends. So I started going to my friends as B team op sergeant, talking to the team sergeants and asking for basically how to E8, right? If E8 is, yeah, we just made it a verb. How to E8,
Yes.
right?
Good.
Yeah. So I 100% leaned on my senior E8s in the company.
People shit on B team time, especially guys that are on a team because they don't want to go to the B team. But there's some valuable information there about your job. Do you think? Do you think that's the case?
But yes, I don't know if it's the right place. Maybe. I'm not a huge fan of a new guy out of the Q course showing up to the B team, unless they're just waiting a couple weeks to move down to a team because the guy's going to PCS down to or something. I mean, there's definitely merit there because you get to see from the outside looking in what a team life is, and maybe there's no leg up really. But yeah, B team, absolutely. I think it should be the guys that have a couple years team time to show up and be able to support the ODAs, right? Because it's 100% the function of the B team, right? I was at a massive disadvantage when they're like, "Hey, you're be the B team op sergeant. Here's all the concepts." Like I'd never even seen a training concept. So for me, it was a blessing to take that job. And it was about 8, 9 months ish, but I actually got to see how the company functions. How does the training event end up on the calendar? Like, how did we get the bullets to go to this range to do this firing iteration? Like, I learned all of that in about that 9 month period. It was fantastic for me.
Yeah, there's a lot because when you're on a team, you don't know how the company works. And then you go up to the B team and you learn what all the teams are doing and all the effort to support those teams. And then I've said this before, you go to battalion and then you see how the battalion works with the GSB and the support and support companies and all that other shit. And then you kind of get where everybody's complaints coming from because you find out that group doesn't know what it's fucking doing either. And all that's trickling down. So there's some so what I say is, more experience isn't going to hurt you in that case if you get pushed
Yeah.
into that role. Just do a good job, right? Sergeant Major will see that, or he won't. I don't know. Depends on how much he drinks, but
That's the truth.
I wrote down something here that I really liked. When you're in charge and the SWIC roster comes up, right? Ask the dudes and know who needs to take a knee, right? That's a great line there to have your finger on the pulse of where the guys are at because you had said they're not going to 99% of the time not going to admit it themselves, right? So, did you I mean, I know and that no one's going to admit that. Nobody's going to say I need to take a break unless it's absolutely imperative. How detrimental do you think that is to guys' personal relationships, mental health, physical health in their careers?
Obviously, we know the answer. We've seen a lot of the outcome of guys not knowing when to take a knee, or their leadership not knowing, or a conversation happening at all. Um, Personally, I'm batting 500 out of the two brothers that reached out to me. So I took that shit seriously. I mean, was I there? Was I 100% in the know all the time? No, because paperwork and being in charge consumes you. So I tried my best to stay connected. And I had a fantastic 18 Fox that said, I will be the guy to keep my finger on the pulse because you are busy. And he was busy too, but
Mm-hmm.
he's still an E7. He still can, you know, mingle with the guys. So I don't know. It's a tough one because you are supposed to be this one level detached, but at the same time be 100% attached to everyone. It's this weird dynamic that I can't explain because it's a small team. But if you get too close, now you're a bro, but then you back up and you're not
Yeah.
connected. It's I don't know that there's not a great answer here. But to your
I
original
like what you
question,
said there, though, right? Because the 18 Fox is the only position that has to cover up and cover down, right, on the team using, your counter. That's the closest thing on the team to a counterpart is the, officer and then the warrant. I don't know what they
they got
do.
their own
Touch their
lane.
they touch their gingerly touch their tips or something like that. But that's your closest thing to a counterpart on the team is the 18 Fox. To use your resources on the team because it's your responsibility, right? If a guy's having an issue, it's going to become your issue really fast, and that's just a way to head things off and get it taken care of. Because when we mess things up as GBs, we really are good at it. I mean, talk about torpedoing your life to the next level. So
It's not a basic DUI mess up. I mean, DUIs
no,
are detrimental nowadays.
yeah,
Like when I came in, that was mandatory for E7. DUIs are just like child's play compared to what SF mistakes are. That's Motley Crue back in the late 80s, early 90s, destroying hotel rooms and the stuff that happened on the bus with ladies and phones. You know what I'm saying? That's when SF messes up. It is epic.
it is. But we're supposed to be the best at the basics, and that's one of the basics. That's really where we draw our experience from. No, it is. It's something to note. Take care of your mental health and take care of yourself, or they will not take care of you. So
And if I can
yeah,
just one couple last sentences on that one, my attitude definitely changed on that from being a team guy for 5 years, sitting in the seat and having that older school mentality of just suck it up. Why are you bringing me these problems? But then I'd be Santa Kelly, and then I would try and take care of the guys. And then I would be like, no, we got to suck it up. Throw in a dip. Let's go. Walk it off. And I wasn't consistent. But once I moved from that team to the mountain school, I actually saw and believed in the mental health situation because it had been long enough, well over a decade, guys in my particular formation, or, you just start hearing about it. So and so killed themselves. So and so killed themselves. You're going to memorial. It's no longer death overseas, it's death stateside. And then I was
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe there's something here. So I fully support. I mean, the group shrink might not be the person, that might not be your cup of coffee. Cool. Go try a different cup of coffee. The military has tons of sources and or resources, and you can go outside the military and all of these things, and your security clearance isn't immediately jeopardized. Or shit, I think they've changed their viewpoint on that too. Unless you get to a certain point where you're saying, yes, I'm going to kill myself or something. I think there's a trigger point, but like for your first couple of visits or even continued education of yourself through therapy, I don't think it's threatening your TS anymore like it used to.
Yeah, that's the fear, right? A lot of guys have is if I raise my hand, this is gonna end my time, so they'll just bury it,
Yep.
they'll keep it to themselves. Do you think that you were only able to realize what's going on around you once you got out of that seat? Because as you said, you're a young guy in the chair and big responsibility. So you got those other 11 guys to worry about. But now when you've gone out to mountaineering school, you got a bunch of different people around you and you got a lot more experiences. That kind of give you that 30,000 foot view of, hey, things are kind of
Well,
fucked up.
I wouldn't say 30,000 feet, maybe 14,000 feet,
That's
which
close
directly
enough.
relates to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. But it was a different viewpoint because the pressure wasn't there. I had to bring a group of guys together to teach one skill set. I mean, it was summer or winter or, rope systems or skiing or ice climbing or regular rock climbing. I mean, but one general skill set versus the ODA. I mean, you bring in five MOSs and then officers and then all of the things we go overseas to do. Yeah, tons of pressure. But now I'm focused on one thing. Well, technically, no, because we are going to focus on this one thing. Now we're going to focus on this guy needs professional development training. He's an E6, needs to go to SLC. What am I going to do to fill in his space? I still have to train 22 students per class. All, yeah, but smaller than being a team sergeant. So I had a little more time to reflect and think back and, man, I could have done that better. Or, hey, did you hear so and so killed himself? Did you hear so and so killed himself? Oh, hey, the memorial's tomorrow. Memorial's next week. Yeah. So it started catching up for sure.
I don't know if you saw this on my stories on Instagram, but I'll read it to you. And I just did just let's see. And it's just one of those things you read it and you go, bro. And the truth is that all veterans pay with their lives. Some pay all at once, while others pay over a lifetime.
Actually, I did see that one. And it was about 30 minutes before we started this podcast.
God, that's rough, huh?
That's some truth. But I've also listened to your other podcast, and you've got a continuing theme there that veterans are painted as victims or painting themselves as victims, or the public is. But we're some of the hardest charging motherfuckers you're going to run into.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think it has a lot to do with imposter syndrome. We're not worthy of our accomplishments, and we drill that into our own heads. It's just like even me. I didn't get to do one thing. I did a lot of cool shit. I do a lot of cool shit now. People think I'm fucking awesome. But I didn't get to do one tiny little thing, and it eats away at me. Well, what if you didn't get to do a bunch of shit, or once you got hurt, or you got this, and you got put out a different way, or you fucked up and you got kicked out? Guys will just let it eat at them. They don't think they're worthy of their accomplishments. They don't think they're worthy of their benefits or seeking help. Or somebody else should do that. They take alcohol and they supplement. They won't go see a doctor, but they'll go to the store and get a bottle of booze and try and drink themselves to death. we're not that stereotype. Veterans aren't that way. But if you hear stuff in the media or you hear stuff on TV or you read shit on social media, you can be more apt to slide into that stereotype, unfortunately, than you would be otherwise. It's kind
Yeah.
of a bummer, you know. Guys, it sucks with the suicide. You just start hearing about guys dying, and you'll see them on the page. You look at the age, and you just kind of go. You don't even have to read the rest of it. Kind of know the whole story of what happened. And it's just a
Mhm.
sad. And then you put it out of your mind. And we're very good at that. We're very good at putting these things out of our mind and not thinking about them. Whereas,
Until you do think about it.
if we until you do, maybe if we were better at talking about it, you know,
Right.
then it would happen less.
I've definitely been through my ups and downs. Like I mentioned earlier, it's you get down with team time, and so you're down with team time, and you know you're never going back to war. Double whammy. Um, but my wife has drug me out of some ditches. Not so much physically, but that mental ditch I'm trying to die in with alcohol or just self doubt talk, and she's a badass. That's all I got to say. She grew up in a hardcore situation that I won't go into. She'll put some people to shame when they say they've had a hard life, and I'm just like, cool. So you had running water at your house your whole time growing up? Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one of
Yeah.
those facets, but
We take shit like that for granted, we get down on our situation, but at the end of the day, I got hot water at my house, and when I turn the faucet on, it comes on. Whew, you're pretty well off. That's pretty awesome, right? Fuck, you've been some shitty places where they don't have any of that stuff.
yeah. And
We
expect
get
you to
we
buy
get
your own bottled water because you're getting per diem when you're living between three uranium mines, maybe two, might have been three. Not sure, but we didn't trust the water source.
well, I'm sorry for your cancer treatment that's upcoming.
I did fill a gallon jug with her urine as a test. Never heard any results back though.
Oh, well, and that's where the dark humor comes in right there. I mean, if you start saying this stuff in a team environment and it's all just, oh man, I would love to come to your funeral, but I just don't want to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and those things like that. Um, but, well, whatever. I guess we get to, I guess to put a pin on that, I think, especially on the mental health side, it's just something we don't talk about. We just act like it's not going to affect us. And it affects, I mean, I've only done so many of these episodes, right? Everybody, to some degree, somebody, and it's hard. Everybody gets to that point they're tired and they are getting down, and life's getting the fucking better of them. Whether it's the stress of team time or the rotation or just the constant schedule or it's never enough. It's never enough. You know that you get to one stage and you want the next one and you want the next one. It's the same why we left our unit and went to another selection to try for another one. I don't know, but knowing inward, right? Yeah, it's one thing for your team sergeant to know when you need to take a knee, but to actually look at yourself and say, I need to take a break, and to have that discipline. And that's something I see as the team sergeant impressing on your guys that, hey, tell your guys to stop and look around once in a while and take stock of what they've got going on in their lives, because it can quickly get off the rails and get out of hand. Well,
As
I don't
long as
know.
they can look at that, but combat the desire that just massive fire inside that they cannot let their buddy to their left or right down. They can't let their
Yeah,
team down. That's a massive driving factor that no one
right.
wants to
Yeah.
take a knee. They'll be
No, you don't
broken
want to.
to the point of they just broke their ankle doing XYZ from last week. And they're like, I'm good, boss. And I'm like, bro, you couldn't even get out of your car this morning. Right. So that's know when your boys need to take a knee.
Yeah. We'll do that too. We'll just push through that shit fucking to our own detriment, torpedo our lives. Fuck it. At least we've went on a beer run or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got another point here that I loved. If you are still lost, sit down with Sergeant Major. How much are you leaning on Sergeant Major? when you're in the chair, and how much should you be?
Depends on the sergeant major. I
Yeah.
didn't come across too many duds. So at a minimum, you're going to walk into a dude's room and he's got at least potentially 3 to 5 years on you, depending on your path and his path. He's got 3 to 5 years. And in SF time, that could mean a multitude of things. But, you know, leaning on the sergeant major is a couple things. One, experience. Two, it's his fucking company. He's going to tell you how to do it. So lean on him. If he wants his NCVRs to read XYZ, he's going to spell it out. If he has his own method, but the battalion CSM knows what he wants on the NCVRs, that's going to trickle down the line. Don't just sit there and guess and turn in your worst work. Go have a conversation. Get ahead of the power curve. Lean on that sergeant major. Good, bad, and indifferent. You're going to get an answer.
Yeah. Use all your resources, right? I mean, hopefully he's not. Hopefully he's there. He wants you to succeed. But something else he wrote in there was develop your SOP around what group and battalion want to see, right? If you're not asking what you want from me, then you're not going to produce what they want, right?
Yeah, you're just playing this guessing game like, well, I think battalion wants it. But did anybody ask what they want? Right? You're telling me we can go across the planet and link up with an indigenous tribe and work with and train and get up to a battalion size element to fight a oppressive regime, but we can't walk up the sidewalk and go talk and make friends with the battalion staff guys? Yeah, you're not going to walk into the battalion commander's office and start reading his mind, but his staff is a reflection of him, right?
Yeah.
And they're a reflection of the battalion S3 and the battalion CSM, the battalion sergeant major. They're up there every day. Go ask questions. Sorry, got to adjust the shorts.
So most of the life, was admin and setting up training and doing this and doing that. So what's it like? This is my team. We've got everything out. Finally, the paperwork's done. We're going to the field and finally getting to do the training, leading the team. What's that like?
When a plan comes together and the training falls in seamlessly, and the trucks all have proper tire pressure to get there, and the Bravo pulls the right ammo, and the Charlie brings the right demo and blasting caps and all the equipment to do the things. It is awesome. When all the stars align, it's great. But man, I need to write a second book. When the stars don't align for the first time, right? Or you notice that one little thing, like, hey, why didn't you bring a stapler? We're going to the range and we are putting paper targets up this entire day, right? But once you start noticing the small little things, like don't fall into the trap as a team sergeant and just only look for the negative, right? And only point out the negative. Yeah, you have to point out the stuff that gets messed up. But if that's all you do, that's all the guy's going to think of. Either he's going to get hyper focused and be totally anxiety ridden, just trying to please you, or he's not going to give a shit anymore. And the mission's not going to get done. So you got to be able to roll in, identify the things, and just be like, oh, hey, cool. I'm the experienced guy. If we don't have staples, I know I saw spray glue, or I know we got clamps, or I know we got this, right? Because it could be the junior 18 Bravo running his first range. We don't know, right? Just point out the things that are wrong. If he doesn't have a solution, you got the whole team. Hey guys, what can we do here? Right? Bring that team mentality in. And yeah, I think that would go a lot further than just pointing out the bad shit. So anyway, I kind of went on
Describe to
tangent on
me.
that one.
No, you're good, man. Describe to me that moment when you sat back as the team sergeant and you're like, yes, yes, this is it. What was that moment like?
Um, let's go back to the story where the company sergeant major walks in, says, "Congratulations, Tom, you made the 8 list. You're now the team sergeant." For the 1 second that it took for everyone's heads to slowly turn and look at me was about that time right there. It's like, yes, I'm no longer an 18 Fox. Shit. Now what do I do?
So it was just 2 years of playing catch up after 1 second of success.
Yeah, 1 second of success, and then I thought I delivered a, all right, guys, hey, yeah, I know I've been here, but I'm I don't know everything. I'm gonna lean on you guys. Blah blah blah. Whatever speech I gave, can't remember anything nowadays. Not as many concussions as you, but I've been hitting that a few times. Um, so I gave some speech. I thought it worked, but you know, actions are better than words. Um, and then you fast forward 3 years, and Team Certain Time's done, and you look back, and either you focus on the bad, which is this book started off as 100% just a lessons learned, never do this stuff, um, or you sit down with some smart people and they say, hey, there's no way you were Team Certain for 3 years and only failed. What'd you succeed at? And I'm like, okay. And now the book.
Yeah, your last, pretty much right at the end, you admitted that when you started, you were 100% convinced of your own failure.
Yeah. Because I
Why?
left the team, and that's all I could focus on. Because, depending on your team start time and what you get to do, and is it just back to back trips to combat zones, and you lose some people or nothing happens to people, like thousands, I mean, different branches, right? But when you do nothing but deploy to Iraq for 3 years, do one random trip to Kosovo as a brand new guy, do nothing but schools for 5 years, then you go to the B team, and it's pretty busy because I'm learning a whole new job, and then I shoot down here and pseudo in charge of a team. Now you're in charge of a team, and all you're doing is J sets, and it's slow go. You do two J sets in your first year, a J set, and then you do a 6 month weird rotation where you're not there for the whole 6 months, but you do trips and you training events and all stuff. But it's super slow mo, right? For 3 years, and you think you're doing good, but then it's a slow crawl into what you're doing is not positive, and then somebody talks to you or something happens, and then you're like, oh, okay, before this gets really bad, let me change my behaviors, my thought process, my approach, and it gets better, and then you think you're doing good, but then you're not, and then you get out of that, and all you can do is think back to 3 years ago. How could I have done it better? Man, I fucked up a lot of shit. Did I ruin careers? Did I write an NCOER wrong? Did I assess somebody wrong? Did somebody leave my team because, or multiple people leave my team because of my actions? Yeah, all the self doubt, 100%, dude. So, yeah, but
Yeah,
fast forward.
the best job and the most stressful job, right? That's, it's a lot of fucking responsibility. When we first spoke before this, you said, you know, your hopes were you were middle of the road based on what you were seeing up and down the hallway. What brought you to that conclusion? What were you seeing from other team sergeants that you wanted to emulate?
All right, so this amazing 2020 vision looking back. So I have a statement in the book talking about, sure, work hard, play hard. Well, play hard. I, did I take it too far? No. Did we get kicked out of any countries? Did anybody get any DUIs? Did anybody go to jail, prison, this? None of the crazy stuff happened. But I think I took and supported work hard, play hard a little too far. I think to a point to where, yeah, we got the work done, but then we still play hard, right? So I think I focused a little too much on the play hard bit. So looking back, it's easy to see why I was a middle of the road guy versus a top tier or top rated team star. So I
Do
think
you
that
think
has a big piece of it.
you think some of that is just you holding on to being one of the boys some more, just trying to stay in that previous mind state that you were in? Because you were you were a senior E7, and then all of a sudden your team sergeant in, as you said, the span of everybody turning their head. Do you think some of that could have been lingering from trying to hold on to that team time?
Oh yeah, I think that's the number one reason. And then I could pare it down to, oh shit, we're not really training for war. Let's have a good time. We're in these different countries or we're in this different state. Let's party like rock stars, right? And other facets of it. You could just keep going down the rabbit hole for reasons to put more alcohol in your system and have a good time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Get a little carried away. Well, I knew that drinking's fine, right? But man, there's nothing that will derail your goals in the military than alcohol. It is the number one fucking killer of all your hopes and dreams. But it's the most fun, right? It's ingrained in the team room. There's a fucking fridge full of beer. It's, team parties and all that. That's drinking culture. But it is the one thing that will end your career the fastest.
It is. I'm
It's
not
too bad,
sure.
right?
I'm not sure how my team survived or I survived because we pushed it to a limit for sure. I mean, nothing crazy. I'm not sure how this happened. We put gratuitous amounts of alcohol into our systems. Never one bar fight overseas, stateside, anything.
Wait till you hear episode 10 with Lieutenant Colonel Blackburn and him and his team. They went out one night. Oof. He's like, I'm sure glad we didn't hit the blotter because I didn't report anything. I was like, can I put that in the episode? He's like, yeah, I don't care. All right, fine. So
You said
I'm
retired
excited to
yet?
have. Oh yeah, he's retired. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. We if it would have gone a little bit this way, it could have been disaster. If it could have gone a little bit that way, it would have been great. But that's the job, right? Walk a fine line between glory and disaster. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I said, we're still alive. Fuck it. Whatever. Fuck it, right? So, did you feel like you left the team better than you found it or had at least a good handoff when you went off to do new things?
No, it was a weird handoff situation. Before we were scheduled for a 6 month rotation into Niger. And the company sergeant major before we're even, I mean, we're obviously in the planning cycle and prepping and building. Actually, we're getting down to build pallets, so we're talking weeks out. And the company sergeant major comes up, he's like, "All right, hey, you got an option. Option one, you do all 6 months." And I'm like, "Option one, right? This is my last stint. I've already
Mm-hmm.
been team sergeant. We're pushing the 3 year mark here. I get it. It's 24 months now. Obviously, it's 6 months." He's okay. Well, hold on. Option B, your 18 Fox shows up from whatever school he's at and shows up mid rotation. You guys can high five, and then you're back home, and no big deal. You're out, and you got 3 years. Awesome. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. He's like, or option three,
Ooh.
the team deploys without you, and we put this other random E7 or E8 in there, but he won't be the team sergeant the whole time. Eric Martin is scheduled to take the. Dan, you got to edit that one out. Sorry. Or this other, your 18 Fox has to take the team when he comes out of the school, but this placeholder stays as part of the team or leaves. And I'm like, okay, none of that. It makes sense. Just make me the team sergeant the whole time. He's like, Ranger that. Cool. You're the team sergeant the whole time. Let's go. So we get into the deployment. We're in about 2 months. My 18 Fox shows up on schedule and, handover of like his responsibilities because I was trying to handle what he was doing for that country set, for that mission set. And we're going through it. Me and the captain, him, we're all doing fine. And then all of a sudden it was just like an email. "Hey Tom, we're gonna decide to pull you out mid-month or mid-tour. Eric's now the team sergeant." I'm like, damn it. The 18 Fox is now the team sergeant. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So, of course, pick up the phones that can reach back to America. And I said, hey, am I fired? "No, you're not fired. You're not fired. Definitely not fired." And I'm like, well, why'd you say it like 4 times? Never could get an answer. So, to this day, don't know if I was fired or if it was just, hey, you've been in the seat 3 years and this guy takes over. I'm not sure. So, hence the book and hence the
The
super
book.
negative attitude of myself leading
Come
up to
on,
the book.
man. You can't be too hard on yourself, which it sounds like you are, unfortunately, right? But I'll get back to it. So take me through actually writing the book, because I do things and I'll have like a note card with like 2 lines on it, and then I'll turn it into a speech. Right? How did how did we get from how did, to this?
So make sure I get this right because I'm getting old now. All right, so I was running the mountain school. One of my guys made the E8 list, and he said, and he had already left the mountain team at this time, or the mountain schoolhouse. And he reaches out and he's like, "Hey, man, good, bad, and different. I want to hear your opinion and notes and anything you have on being a team sergeant." And of course, I wasn't the only guy who reached out. He reached out to his previous team sergeant, other buddies, and etc. I was just one on his list because he's a super smart dude. Um, and I was like, yeah, I can't just show up and drink a couple beers and tell him some war stories. I'm going to write some stuff down. So,
Mhm.
not the small little green notebook that we all carried in our cargo pocket. It was that, like, I don't know, the supply sergeant's book. It said record on it. I had one of those in a drawer. I pulled it out. I just started word dumping, and word dumping turned into word vomit. 7 pages later of just tiny little handprint that my wife hates when I try and leave a note for her. I had what I thought was a good conversation piece because it's so much, and I didn't want to leave anything out, but it definitely didn't cover everything. So we went and sat down. We had the conversation. Him and I were going back and forth. He asked some questions. I'm like, yeah, either I had the answer or I'd write a note down and be like, let me get that to you before you take the seat or soon after. Um, so that notebook stayed with me. At this time, I'm now the liaison officer, LNO, with 5th Battalion, 19th Special Forces Group, National Guard guys. Fantastic job, great humans, great Green Berets, great support personnel. They definitely take the job serious. And so I made some good friends. Some were E8s, some were E9s, some were E7s, and the conversation continued. The guy that I worked with in the what was it, S35 or S5 future plans, however battalions are set up nowadays, he got pinged to go take a team for a summer training event down in Bravo Company, 5th Battalion, which is on Fort Carson. And he's like, dude, hey, didn't you go just talk to one of your old guys a couple weeks ago? Don't you have some notes in there? And I'm like, yeah. So we ended up having a 2 hour conversation, which turned into more notes. And he's like, at whatever point in the conversation towards the end, he's like, hey, you should write a book. And that was that first little spark right there. And that was within a year time period. So that's kind of where it started. But it really manifested once I left that job, came down here in 2020, and had a whole bunch of senior E7s ready, chomping at the bit to be team sergeants. And I'm like, this is my last go around, possibly. Like, I've been at E8 for a long time. No way I'm getting picked up for E9. Let me just focus on mentoring E7s to be E8s. So I started writing and writing. That's now we're here.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love it. How many copies sold are you at right now?
No clue.
No clue. You don't know? Fuck,
Well,
man.
I mean, my publisher sends me stuff, but I look at the modest check, which is very modest. So I'm assuming somewhere around 1,000
Okay.
copies sold. Yeah.
I'm going to try and get everybody. I'm going to recommend it to everybody. I think this is a fantastic gathering of information. Um, I'm going to try and get it over to a couple other places as well. Um, Looking back on a team, and I noticed this from when I was in my company, right? Did you ever notice that one team was really good at marketing itself? Like you'd see their team stickers everywhere, and they were just like the popular team. Did you ever notice that in your company?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
My first experience with that was the scuba team, or it wasn't a scuba team. It was just a Mare Ops team at first, and then it became a scuba team a couple years later. But they were amazing at marketing themselves. And then the free fall team had stickers. And I looked at my team sir, I'm like, we don't even have a hat, a t-shirt, a team logo. And he's like, that shit's gay. And I'm like,
No.
Roger that.
That shit's
It wasn't until my second
yeah,
team
that's
sergeant.
there's only gonna There's only going to be two answers, and that's one of them. The other one's going to be the right because I don't know. You got to figure out a way to get more people to know that this book is out there. Is what I'm getting at, right? Because
Right.
I've seen that team's stickers all over the world in fucking like just lounges and shit. They'll just stick it
Mhm.
on the wall, and
Yep.
I'm like, man, this just Charlie Company 1336. If anybody's listening, also if you want to be on the show, there's stickers all over the place, and I don't know. We got to figure out a way to get this into more because I think it's just for a guy seven coming to a team to at least have a baseline or something to reference and go, okay, yeah, because it is the basics, right? And we're supposed to be good. And if you just read it over and over, and then you have an understanding of, oh, okay, now I've got this in there. So we got to figure out. But I think it's great, man. Fucking good on you. As far as like your experience in the military, did you get to do everything you wanted to do otherwise, or what's that one thing that you wish you could have done?
Wish I could have done. um, yeah, funny story. And actually, one of your guests already said it was Ranger School.
Just to do it, just to see if because
Well, when Private Kelly, or sorry, I was told E2s could definitely never do it. So as soon as I hit PFC, put in my first Ranger packet. Told PFCs are no, no, no. We're in Alaska. No PFC is going to do that. I'm like, okay, cool. Main specialist, put in my Ranger packet, right? And they're like, well, yeah, we're really looking for the E5s and above, right? This is all pre 9/11.
yeah,
And then I know I was prepping another Ranger packet with a better PT score and whatever I thought was better range score and everything. And then 9/11 happens. So that Ranger School packet turned into a selection packet. I was already building it. So I just had to
yeah,
change the 4187 to do
yeah.
some more stuff. So
There's always
I
that
wish I
one
would have done
thing,
Ranger School.
right? Yeah, just to see how much it, sucked.
I wanted to see how terrible it was and did I have the guts to make it through.
Probably, but a lot of people do. So, fuck.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Yeah, think about going to keg selection. Could I have done it? Fuck, probably not. But man, it'd been cool to try. See like what everybody's at least go on selection. See like, well, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can't. Fuck. At least I could talk about it. But no, I get that. So, did you ever stop and take a look around while you were really having fun and really enjoying what you're doing and realize that you're in the good old days then, or did it all just go by like that?
It was blink of an eye, but I was able to slow down enough when I was in the mountaineering school at 13,000 and 14,000 feet and truly appreciate where I was and how cool and uh, amazing our job was. I mean, not everyone's a mountain guy, but just free fall, scuba, even the mobility guys and their different platforms that they get to build SOPs and go out and do cool shit on. I mean, poor bastards on a ruck team, but everybody else getting after it and being able to do cool stuff. So yeah, that's right there. When I was, double digits, 10,000 plus feet, that's when I knew right
Yeah,
there.
there's moments you're like, I can't believe I get paid to do this shit, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Even when I was in my support capacity, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. That's why I'm always like, oh fuck, I'll go to the B team. I'll go right now. I'll go get my shit. Let me go pack my shit. Oh fuck, man. Well, I got five questions for you if you got a few seconds here.
We've
We'll
been here
wrap.
for a couple
We'll
minutes. What's 5 more seconds?
five more. All right, man. You know the deal. What is your response to thank you for your service?
I'm actually in line with you. It was an honor. That's my go-to phrase.
So simple, right? It really was. I heard. I'm so glad I heard that one because it's just simple and to the point, and it really truly was an honor. I
Yeah.
really fucking loved it.
I'm telling the truth, and it's a good response. Fast, short, you know.
What's the one characteristic that sets operators apart from conventional forces?
It's I've heard you ask this question multiple times, and I've been stewing on this one. There's not just one. One I would pick would be the willingness to operate in the gray, because that's where they put us. There's no perfect mission set an SF team shows up to. Oh, it's a simple JSET. Oh, it's a simple deployment, Afghanistan, Iraq, or at the time, as we were doing all that stuff. No, there's always going to be this gray section, tiny sliver, or this massive divide of gray. The willingness to operate in that gray zone.
Yeah. And in the uncomfortable position, right?
That.
Yeah. What's great about the questions, right? Because some of them you'll give different answers depending on what mood you're in or what memories are in your head. So you could go, it's grit and determination. And then some of it's just like, unwillingness to quit, all this other stuff. So I just think, and I could ask you the same 5 questions in a different mood and you possibly give me different answers. Maybe not the first one. But anyway, what's that one moment of your career, circling back my show? What's that one moment of your career that you wish you could go back and relive?
um, I've been stewing on this one because 9 years in the same company, most of it team time, as in all of it, but 8 or 9 months of it team time. There's four, and then 4 trips to war, 3 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, a couple handfuls of JSETs, all awesome. But really, when it boils down to is finding some clairvoyance when I was running the mountain school. If I can go back and be in that mountain school again, yeah, I think that'd be it. I got a pretty cool picture if I'm allowed to share some.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Let's see if this works. All right. Oh, I got to share a screen, which means I'm sharing my screen. So let's do. Ooh, here we go. I got it. If I do presentation, screen,
We're
and I
learning
do
something
this.
here.
Here we go. Can you see what I'm saying? Am I sharing my screen?
I see you.
Okay, that's not sharing my screen, is it? Hopefully you can edit the shit out of this because this is not working.
I'm gonna make another mark here.
Perfect. All right, let's forget
Tom,
all that
browser
shit.
needs screen sharing permissions. What should I do? It lacks the permissions. All right, we're gonna edit all that out.
Okay,
What
excellent.
was
So I
it?
would.
Was it just the? Was it just the clear the atmosphere? Not really the atmosphere. Well, maybe it was the atmosphere, but the um, I don't know what I'm trying to say. At the mountain school, right, where you didn't have all that pressure on you, were able to just see the whole big picture of everything. Is that what just opened your eyes to how everything was?
It was a simplified version of what I just came from. 3 years of running a team. Now I come to another team environment, but we are really just drilled down into one task, but one big task, and completely safety oriented. But once all the paperwork was done, and then we got to do, we're running the same summer course twice a year. And then we get into the one winter course we're running a year, plus all the instructor training that we had to do, train ups for the courses. We're in the mountains a lot. So pure, what can I do again? Purely SF world. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that's when you're in the mountains or you're doing training. There's just something about it. You're not even in the same. You're away from base. You're detached from everything. You're just free, right? You're just out there, and it's just something about it. You're with your team, and you're out there in nature, and it's just so fucking cool, right? You just a completely different environment, and then they don't. I saw this reel the other day. It doesn't prepare you for when you come back to stop and go traffic on the highway. You go from this serene, happy place to fucking sitting in traffic. They don't prepare you for that when you get out of the military.
No, that's a whole nother conversation right there.
Bullshit. What's the best piece of advice that you received during your service?
Pretty sure I threw it in the book. You got to be situationally aware of your situational awareness. And before I entered SF world, I took it to mean a couple different things. And it was told with a totally different story about a range incident. But when I got to SF world, I'm like, know your environment, right? And really apply it. So that was the best piece of advice I received and held on to. And obviously, it was important enough to throw it down 25 years later.
Be situationally aware of your situational awareness.
Awareness.
All right. I get it. I like it. You got to think about it for a second. I get
You
it.
do.
All right, man. What were
Slows
you
you down
afraid
for a
of?
minute.
What were you afraid of then? And what are you afraid of now?
Afraid of then was just embarrassing myself, really, messing up, just being a failure now. And, just a little bit before now. And of course, going into the future is letting my team down because I failed my job or letting my family down because I can't provide. And into the future, anybody else is just letting my tribe down, my people that I care about down. That's my fear now.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely not letting the regiment down because I think this is a great piece of literature here. As I said, I'm going to try and get it to everybody that I can. Tom, how can people find a Team Sergeant's Handbook?
You've got blacksmithpublishing.com. You got a couple options up in the upper left. Pull it down. You got the library. Scroll down through the books. Team Sergeant's right there. Team Sergeant Handbook's right there, or Amazon.com.
All right. I will have links to find Tom's book in the show description. Tom, I really appreciate you coming on with me. I think you've done an excellent thing, and I'm going to fucking tell everybody I can about it. You got anything for me?
No, brother. But except for thank you for helping me spread the word and sitting down and talking to a brother for what, 3 hours now?
Yeah, a little over 3. Hey, man, I love having you on the show. You said, you ruminated on this decision, but now you've done one, and hopefully we can get you on some other ones, and you can further your mission of getting this book into every senior E7's hands in regiment. So we'll see what
That'd
we
be
can do for you.
fantastic.
I appreciate you, man. Bye, everybody.